City Network.
Hey guys, welcome to another exciting episode of Final Score, but we're doing something real special this time. Let's keep in mind, hey, you can see us. How
We're
amazing
live.
is that? We are live.
We are live.
That's right. We are live on the Podcast City Network Twitch channel. Just go over to twitch.tv/Podcast City Network and make sure you give them a subscription, give them a follow, check out everything they got going on. A lot of craziness, including ELS Uncut. Hey, and now Final Score, because this is the first time we've been actually live.
Yeah, this is we wanted to make it special for this episode being our NFL mock draft preview, and we wanted to make it special, and I think we should probably do this moving forward, shouldn't we?
I think we should.
I think we should. We should try
Looking at everything on my screen, I think it looks crystal clear. We got
looks pretty
all this
good.
great memorabilia behind us. You know, we weren't lying when we said we had a studio, guys. Okay, we were not lying necessarily. Anyways, but
It's kind of a studio.
It's kind of a studio. But if you did not notice, I do have my awesome co-host Craig here.
Thank you. Welcome back.
Yes. It's so exciting. We're episode 11 now. We've also have broken. I had a milestone on our Podbean. We've broken well over 100 downloads now. Getting a lot of great followers, and we thank you guys so much for giving us your time and definitely giving us a listen. And we hopefully you'll keep listening to us, and we don't scare you away at any point.
Yeah, we appreciate the support. Having over 100 downloads for us, only like you said, 11 episodes in.
Yeah,
it's great. Goes to show that people actually a little bit kind of care what we got to say.
they like us. They
really like us.
But one thing that everybody does like, that's playoffs, man.
Playoffs are in full swing.
We are in full swing with playoffs, and we're going to have to hit it right off the head because we got a lot to cover today, so don't mind us if we breeze through a few things. But first things first, NBA playoffs.
Yeah, we're in the middle of the first round. We actually got a couple games going on in our studio here. The Brooklyn and Philadelphia series is currently at halftime. So,
yes.
But yeah, we're just going to breeze through these because we know what you guys are waiting for. You're waiting on that mock draft of ours. So,
yes. But we're mean, so we're gonna make you wait just a little,
just a little bit.
So please don't let us scare you away.
It's tantalizing.
But first things first, looking at our first matchup that we want to talk about: Milwaukee Bucks, Detroit Pistons. The Bucks have a 2-0 lead and have another game today, Game 3 at 8 p.m. We kind of predicted this one. The Bucks are kind of sweep through this series, aren't they?
Yeah, the first game was a pretty bad blowout. Being a Detroit fan is pretty embarrassed and. Went on Twitter and went on a bit of a tirade, so apologize if you follow my Twitter. But game 2, Pistons made it a little bit closer, but still, the Bucks are too much in this series. I don't think Pistons might win one game at home, but I doubt it. They're not suited to beat this team.
I mean, I think maybe you're hoping for one win because honestly,
I am.
I know you are, but honestly, I just don't see it happening. Giannis is out there playing out of his mind and is able to help elevate the play of everybody else around him. And I honestly feel the Bucks are going to just completely sweep this and go on to the next round.
Yeah, the role players are stepping up too. They're shooters that have been streaky throughout the year and not really know what you're going to get. They've been playing very, very well in the first 2 games. So, Detroit doesn't really have enough talent right now to compete at all.
No, they most definitely don't. But, at the end of the day, it is a feel-good story. They finally got back to playoffs because I know it's been a little bit, but
it's been a couple years. Not as long as the Magic. We'll talk about it in a second.
We'll get to that in a moment. But just to change gears a little bit into another series, the Boston Celtics taking on the Indiana Pacers, a 4-5 matchup. Celtics currently lead this series 3-0, so it's looking that it's probably going to end tomorrow in Game 4 at 1 p.m.
Yeah, it's been all dominance by the Celtics here. I'm kind of surprised. I thought Indiana would come out in Game 3 and make it a close game, which they kind of did, but I thought it might be a 5-game series. I mean, definitely this game. I think this game's over tomorrow when they play Game 4 at 1.
And what was interesting when we initially talked about this matchup, we thought this could actually be a very intriguing matchup. It might actually, prove to be a little bit more of a test for both teams, including, since you take into account Indiana doesn't have Oladipo. Celtics have kind of been hot cold when they were ending the season, so we didn't know exactly what we were going to get, but hey, Celtics turned it on at the right time.
Yeah, they're coming together at the right time, and that's all you can ask for with a team like that.
Most definitely. But another matchup that is gonna kind of hurt me a little. Hurt me a little bit. Talk about this. Orlando and Toronto has been a great series. Well, for the most part, the first game Orlando went out and they were just on fire and were able to steal game one in Toronto. And it was magical. Pun fully intended.
Pun fully intended.
Because the next game they ended up losing by 29 points. And then yesterday,
I think they took that personally in game one, so they came out like, all right, we're gonna squash this now.
Maybe a little, but the magic in game two just didn't show up. But when they came back to Orlando last night, I thought it was going to be a much more competitive game, and it proved to be until Orlando finally took a lead, and then Orlando just fell completely apart, let the Raptors get on a 16-0 run, and Orlando just lost its shooting. It couldn't make a shot to save their lives, and everything was just getting tipped away. It was bad.
It doesn't help when you shoot. I think it was 31%. We found out it was, but it was pretty bad.
But we were perfect with free throws.
Right? Again, how is that going to help you when you're shooting 30% from the field?
Yeah, that is a good point.
Terrence Ross, who's been playing decently well throughout this series, and you kind of know what you're going to expect. He's a volume shooter. He gets either really hot or really cold. He was really cold last night. Yeah. Missed almost everything he put up, unfortunately. But I think that game was the momentum shifter for the Raptors, and I honestly think they're going to win out here.
Oh, don't tell me that.
I hate to say it because we want the local teams to play well.
Well, the Magic owe me one more win because I did say Raptors are winning in 6.
That is true. They do owe you that.
The Magic owe me at least one more at home.
They do owe you that.
But to bring the round out our Eastern Conference slate, we had the 3-seed 76ers taking on the Brooklyn Nets. Currently, the 76ers do lead that series 2-1, and they are playing Game 4 currently. It is at halftime. Do we even get a score for that game?
Brooklyn's up. I think they're up by 6 or 8 or something like that. I haven't really watched it too much. We've been getting ready for this show.
Yeah,
so,
we as you see, we've got so much production value with a camera. We even got lights, guys.
Oh yeah,
that's how cool we are.
We did it for you guys because we want to, do it right on the first live stream that we do for this show.
You know it.
But Sixers need to get their act together. They really do. I mean, Joel Embiid still not playing. He's not. His knee's not right.
No.
They're not getting the right game plan they need to make Ben Simmons productive. He's not great in the half-court offense. And Brooklyn, as expected, they're coming out. They're playing well on their home floor. Mm-hmm. And I think this series could go to 7 games. And like we said in the preview show for the matchups for here, the Sixers got to be careful because they could lose this series.
They very realistically could. Let me get my words out. And Brooklyn's really making this a series. If 76ers don't get things going, and like you said, with Embiid being out, it really hurts. It looks great in those suits, by the way. But he'd look better if he was on the court playing. And it could end up being a real deciding factor for how the series is going to go.
Yeah, I really need the Sixers to pull through here because I actually have them as one of my finals picks. So get your act together, Philadelphia. Embiid needs to, when he comes back and finally does play again, if he does end up coming into play in Game 5, especially if it's a 2-2 series, they're going to need him to be well and play well. They got to play through him in the post. Can't get comfortable with just settling for threes. He's got to play through the post, through him. The Nets have no answer for him in the post, so that's going to be their key for this series.
Absolutely, and if they don't get things going, it's all going to fall apart, and that's what's going to end up happening. But we'll see. That's why the games are played. So,
exactly.
But looking over to the Western Conference and a lot of the craziness going on over there, Golden State and the LA Clippers. Has this been an interesting series? Because we ended up at one point where the LA Clippers came back from 31 down to win.
Yeah, that was crazy.
It's already hard enough putting Clippers and winning in the same sentence, but against Golden State and 31 points down, that's just amazingly bad on Golden State's part, because how do you allow your defense to just completely fall apart and allow them to take a game like that when you have that much of a comfortable lead? And I'm pretty sure Kerr came out and even said that the team just straight gave up, just stopped playing defense. They had the lead, so they just stopped.
Yeah, and at home, no less, too.
At home.
They did it at home, and that was what was surprising. I was actually watching that game, and I saw they were up by, I think it was like 25 at the time, and this game's over. I'm just going to go do something else. I come back, and it's a close game. It's like, oh, wow, okay. Well, got to pay attention now. But this is a really hotly contested series. You kind of thought that the Warriors would just blow out the Clippers in all aspects, just how talented they are. But they've had Clippers, to their credit, they're a very resilient team. Doc Rivers was saying that they're the most resilient team that he's coached in his career.
Absolutely.
So I wouldn't be surprised if tomorrow in Game 4 the Clippers make it close. But outside of that one game, the Warriors in the 2 games they've won pretty easily, pretty handily. So I would imagine that that's the only game the Clippers are going to win. But they'll probably make Game 4 close. Warriors probably win by about 2 possessions.
Well, the Game 4 will be tomorrow at 3:30 p.m., so definitely make sure you check it out. I do have Golden State pretty much finishing it off because I think that 31-point, blown lead, I think is really going to stick with Golden State throughout the rest of this series.
That's a wake-up call.
That is definitely a wake-up call. So I feel from here now Golden State's going to get things going and business will be a-booming. But looking at some of our other matchups, we still have our 4-5 matchup between the Houston Rockets and the Utah Jazz. Houston is my pick to go all the way. So they definitely need to keep winning in this series. They currently are leading the series 2-0 with Game 3. That's going to be late tonight, part of the late series at 10:30 p.m. So definitely make sure you check it out. Definitely think that Rockets are just going to keep on rolling.
For Utah being as good of a defensive team as they are, James Harden, to his credit, is doing what he was doing in the regular season. The knock on him has been, can he do it in the playoffs? He's honestly choked a bit in the last few years in the playoffs when it matters most, but he's, to his credit, doing very, very well, and he's playing lights out in this first round against Utah. And we're talking about Golden State need to get their act together.
Yes.
They're potentially going to see Houston in the second round, which is a little early than we would have liked, but they're really going to need to bring it. So I think Houston is probably going to win. They might even sweep this series, but I think they win in probably about 5 games. Utah takes one of the 2 at home, but Houston is going to move on pretty easily, and they're going to have a date probably with Golden State in the second round.
Yeah, more than likely, and we'll definitely see how that one plays out as well. But looking at some of our other matchups, you have Portland Trail Blazers and the Oklahoma City Thunder still going at it. The Blazers do lead this one 2-1, but I do feel like OKC might have a chance to try and come back in this one a little bit if they can get things tempered and going. Yeah,
the home team has won every game in this series so far, so that's kind of to be expected.
Yes,
from a traditional standpoint, but this series has been so much fun to watch.
Oh, it really has.
Dame Lillard and Russell Westbrook jawing at each other. I was watching game 3 last night, and these two genuinely dislike each other.
Genuinely,
and it makes for great drama. And
I swear it seems like after every game there's like a new post of them just taking a stab at each other. Like I had one saying, "Oh no, there is an issue," and then after the next game it's like, "Nah, that issue is taken care of." Like this is classic, and I love it. It's so entertaining.
Yeah, the one knock on OKC is outside of Westbrook and Paul George, they really don't have a whole lot of support. They don't have a whole lot of shooters. Jeremy Grant played very, very well. I think he was 4 for 4 from 3 at one point last night. So they really need the role players to step up, but Paul George has got to be the guy that they go through. Russell Westbrook is going to get a triple-double almost every single time he gets out on the court. So you need Paul George to be up in the 30 points a game this series range if you want to have a chance to win if you're OKC.
Oh, absolutely. And if OKC can't keep it coming, though, best believe Portland's going to take advantage. And that's what's great about this series is that even though the home team has won every game, you always know this is probably going to go 6, if not even all 7 games. So definitely going to be an interesting series once we start getting down to the wire.
Yeah, I think it's going to go all 7. This is a great series back and forth. OKC's going to have to win on the road, which they haven't played well on the road, especially in this series. So got to win one on the road if you want to move on. And that's actually one of my underdog picks. I have OKC over the Trailblazers. I think I had them in 6.
Yes, I believe you did have them in 6.
I think I had them in 6.
But they still have work to put in if they plan on having that happen.
A lot of work to do. Yep.
But another team, though, that has been able to capitalize on winning on the road, that's the San Antonio Spurs. who is still taking on the Denver Nuggets. This has definitely been a much more back and forth series than I thought it was going to be. I kind of thought that San Antonio might hang around a little, but that Denver really was going to take control of this series and really put San Antonio in its place, and that really hasn't happened to this point. So the Spurs do lead this one 2-1, which is also surprising. And Game 4 will be today at 5:30 p.m. So definitely make sure that you check it out if you want to see who ends up, if the Nuggets can really tie the series up. Because if they don't, they're going to find themselves in a real deep 3-1 hole.
Yeah, experience is the big linchpin in this matchup. Denver is a very talented but very young team. Mm-hmm. Most of these guys haven't seen any playoff experience just yet, and the Spurs have a few guys that have been through the grit and grind of first round, second round series. LaMarcus Aldridge, DeMar DeRozan, mm-hmm. Patty Mills has been through championships. So they've got a lot of experience on their side. And Derek White, we talked about last week in the previous show that he's been stepping up big time, and he's been a big time player for Greg Popovich. And I wouldn't be surprised if San Antonio wins this series. I think Denver evens the series tonight, mm-hmm. But I think inevitably San Antonio ends up taking this series.
Absolutely, because San Antonio has really been putting in the work to be able to get them to where they are now. So I definitely think that, especially with Pop roaming the side of that court, San Antonio is going to end up taking this one.
Yeah, he's going to put him in position to win and put him in position to succeed, which Denver's just, they got to make sure they have an answer for it.
Definitely. But you know what? It's definitely been some exciting that we've been seeing, especially all through basketball, but also in hockey, in the National Hockey League. It's been really crazy, if I do say so myself, especially when you look at the fact that I have to bite my words.
Yeah, this is the wildest playoffs I think I've seen in a long time.
Yeah. And it sucks because I really do have to bite my words, because I predicted that the Tampa Bay Lightning were not only going to sweep the first series, the second series, they were going to sweep it all the way to the Stanley Cup. But at least I got the sweat part right.
You got the sweat part right. You actually had them winning every single game until they got to the finals against Calgary.
Yes. What happened to Calgary?
Wait, what happened to Calgary? Oh, wait. They're the other number one seed that's gone.
Yes, and I couldn't even remember how long it's been, but they said I think this was the first time where both the number one seeds ever have been eliminated in the first round of the NHL playoffs. So
and yeah, even worse for Tampa Bay. This is the first time that the league leader in points mm-hmm. was swept in the first round.
That's right.
That's insane to me. We've seen so many teams have epic collapses in the playoffs, but personally, I think this is the biggest collapse of an NHL team ever.
Oh, this is I would put on par with like 2007 New England Patriots. I'm talking, this is epic proportions.
They at least made the Super Bowl, though.
Yeah, they at least made the Super Bowl. Lightning literally looked like they just rolled out of the local high school ice skating rink and said, hey, we want to play hockey. And that's pretty much what happened, because then Columbus went out and shellacked them. And it wasn't even like it was close. They shellacked them.
To Columbus's credit, they play very physical, which for a finesse team like Tampa and even Calgary, they're both finesse teams. They got a lot of skilled players, and they like to play and move the puck around and get kind of that open ice, and they can use that athleticism to their advantage. Columbus and Colorado play such a physical style. They got up into these skill players and made it really difficult for them to even get clear lines to the net. So a lot of credit goes to those two teams, those two wild card teams, for pulling these monumental upsets.
Yeah, I just can't believe it happened, because now my Stanley Cup picks is completely imploded.
I had Tampa Bay winning it all too.
I'm sure a lot of people had Tampa Bay winning it all, but here we are, and reality is real. So, at the end of the day, though, the Columbus Blue Jackets will go on to play the winner of the Bruins and Maple Leafs, which could come to a conclusion as soon as tomorrow night, or tomorrow afternoon at 3 p.m., where we have Game 6 between the Bruins and Maple Leafs, and Toronto currently leads this series 3-2. Who ends up taking this one? This has been a good series.
This is a tough series. I'm kind of surprised that Toronto is taking kind of the stranglehold on this series, but these two teams genuinely just don't like each other. No. And they play, it's a very heated matchup every time these two take the ice together. So
Absolutely.
I wouldn't be surprised if this goes to 7 games. As far as who's going to win, I don't know. I had Boston winning this series, but I mean, the way they've been playing the last couple games, Toronto looks like they can just easily take this series now.
I mean, they do. And what's crazy is that I don't even remember who I picked because I had Lightning going all the way through and winning everything. So honestly, Boston did come ready to play. You know, they have been making this a nice series, but Toronto, I did not expect to play to this level. And Toronto really hasn't played this level since they last made the Stanley Cup Finals. I think it was 4 or 5 years ago, whenever it was. So it's great to kind of see Toronto and even a Canadian team actually find a little bit more success on, like, what was that other team? They got swept. Oh, yeah, Calgary. So, yeah, you know, I'm having a real bad time when it comes to picking these winners, it seems like. So if you want to make sure that you win any bets or anything you have going on with hockey playoffs, just pick opposite of me and you might be okay.
Yeah, people will be doing really good in their betting if they were taking anything against what you just picked.
Yeah, I know. Just like I'm going to say right now, Notre Dame's going, 0-13 and not winning the national title next year.
Wait, stop being realistic. Stop being realistic.
No, that's too much reality for people.
That's too much reality.
Too much reality. But at the end of the day, though, it's been a great series. Another great series we have going on is with our defending Stanley Cup champions, the Washington Capitals, who've been taking on the Carolina Hurricanes. And it has been quite the series, which is now tied 2-2. And there's been overtime games in this. And it's just been really exciting. But an interesting stat, the home team has won every game in this series.
A lot of credit goes to Carolina for that because in the first 2 games, they looked to be outmatched, and you figured, okay, maybe Washington's going to win in 5 games, maybe 6. But this now looks like after 4 games, looks like it could go 7 game series.
Oh, easily.
So Capitals
don't let Tom Dunn get involved with it.
He's a smart businessman. He can
find his way out of the paper bag somehow.
He'll be fine. He'll be fine.
We'll see how it works out. But either way, this series is a great series. I think the Capitals definitely do have the talent, and I think that will eventually shine through and allow them to end up winning this series, I should say. And I think it's going to go all 7 games.
I agree. I think Washington gets the win at home in Game 7. It'll probably be a couple of really close games for the rest of this series. I wouldn't be surprised if multiple games that are left go into overtime. A few of the games already have, as you mentioned. But I think Washington in 7. It's going to be a tough series for them, especially how Carolina's been playing the last 2 games. I think it goes 7.
Absolutely. Well, they're going to have to get through Game 5 first, which will be tonight at 8 p.m., so definitely make sure you catch that. Another great series that we have happening in the Eastern Conference is now concluded because the New York Islanders swept the Pittsburgh Penguins in 4 games.
More sweeps,
and the Islanders will face the winner of the Capitals and Hurricanes. Does this play to the Islanders' advantage, being able to get all this rest time now, especially if the Capitals and Hurricanes go 7?
I think it does, but it's also good for resting their players and things like that. But sometimes you lose rhythm, and you see a lot of series where the team that goes 7 games, they look in much better sync than the team that previously swept in their previous round, just because of they had that long layoff.
Yeah,
they always talk about in the playoffs, the long layoffs are good, but it's a double-edged sword because you have too much rest. So I think it'll be a really interesting series between the two. I still have Washington winning that series, as I correctly predicted the Islanders to take this series, not by 4, but I thought it would go to 7 games. So it's always nice being a Red Wings fan to see the Pittsburgh Penguins not succeed. So no offense to any of our Pittsburgh listeners or fans out there, but I'm a Detroit fan, so sorry about that.
Well, to be fair in this, the Islanders haven't swept a team in the playoffs, I think, in like 30 or 40 years.
I think it was 1983.
1983
was the last time.
So that right there already shows you it's been, 38 or 37, 36 years. There you go.
Math.
It's hard for me right now. If I had my math right, maybe I wouldn't have picked the Lightning to sweep everything. Anyways, but switching gears over into the Western Conference, Calgary did get swept by the Colorado Avalanche, or almost swept. It was a 4-1 series win for the Avalanche, and they now will play the winner of Las Vegas and San Jose. I did not expect Colorado, who barely squeaked in, I feel like, into the playoffs to have really any kind of chance against Calgary. especially seeing how Calgary was second in scoring and had a score differential. I think it was of plus 62 or plus 63. And they just fell flat on their face. And Colorado gave them everything they could handle.
Again, as we mentioned earlier, just Colorado plays such a physical style, and they got up into Calgary and into their skill players and their finesse players that they have. A lot of credit to them. I did not see this going this way at all. I figured it'd be 4-1 Calgary, or maybe even a 4-2 Calgary. But
at best,
a lot of credit goes to Colorado. Congratulations for them. They have a pretty good fan base up there too, as well. But they get to play the winner of the San Jose Vegas Golden Knights series, which Vegas is leading 3-2. Game 6 is tomorrow at 7. This, as I thought it would be, is one of the most entertaining matchups in the first round of the NHL playoffs this year.
Oh, it absolutely has been. Nobody really knew what to expect from this, obviously, except you. So, going
I feel like there's a theme there with that. I'm usually correct on these things.
Hey, let's not get the head too big now. Last time you got your head this big, the Patriots won the Super Bowl and we couldn't fit you in the studio. So, at the end of the day, True story. Oh, I can't even keep going with that. But San Jose and Vegas has been a great series, really back and forth. It started out where we thought maybe one team was going to be dominant, and then we thought the other team kind of came back, smacked them in the mouth to be dominant. But really, it's just been back and forth. It's just really what team is hot on what night is really what I've seen in this series. So definitely we'll find out how a lot of this will go come Game 6 tomorrow. It could end. Vegas should be able to end it all, maybe. But San Jose might have something to do about it. So definitely make sure you check out that game tomorrow at 7 p.m. Another series we have going on, though, that we currently are watching Game 5 of right now is the Nashville Predators taking on the Dallas Stars. They are currently tied 2-2. So this is definitely a very pivotal Game 5 with Dallas currently leading 3-2.
About halfway through the second.
Yeah, about halfway through the second. So definitely going to be an interesting series. Who you got taking this one?
I'm a bit surprised in this series as well. I figured Nashville would win in about 6 games, 5 or 6 games. But again, this is why I love playoff hockey. Once you get in the playoffs, all bets are off. Doesn't matter.
Everything changes.
Everything changes. Everyone's on a clean slate. Nashville has been really good for the last few years, and Dallas is just playing really, really well right now. I mean, this is a tough matchup for Nashville, but this is going to be a huge game because if Nashville loses on their home ice, they have to go to Game 6 in Dallas in 2 days. Yeah, and that is going to be really tough to try to not only win that game on the road, but then come back to a Game 7 and try to win that one. Even though it's on your home ice, Game 7, everything's on the line. It's going to be extremely intense. So I would, if I'm a Nashville fan, you got to hope that they can pull this game out. So at least they have a little bit of a cushion if they do, in fact, lose Game 6 in Dallas.
Absolutely, because you don't want that kind of pressure to go play in Dallas. It will not work well for you. So they definitely need to hope that they can hold on to this league, get a little bit of momentum going, and maybe try and get something going. But that's a lot of ifs, a lot of wins, and another person that is just hoping they can still hang in there is the Winnipeg Jets. No one thought the Winnipeg Jets would be sitting here in the playoffs, having finally bringing hockey back. I cannot word today either. Bringing hockey back to Winnipeg, home of Chris Jericho, but they are down 3-2 to the St. Louis Blues, and the road team, to go contrary to the theme we have seen throughout the NHL playoffs. My gosh, I really can't word today. The road team has won every single game in the series between the Jets and the Blues.
Yeah, that's something that is really just unusual. You don't see that very often at all.
No, you don't.
And I'm kind of shocked that, again, Winnipeg is down in this, but St. Louis is not a bad team by any stretch of the means. So I wouldn't be surprised if they do, in fact, win this game tomorrow. Or I'm sorry, today. They play tonight at 7. And I believe we're at St. Louis in this game. So it's going to be tough for Winnipeg to win on the road and then have to come back if they do win and win in a Game 7. So I see St. Louis probably taking this game tonight. Probably a close game. It might even go to overtime, but these games have been pretty close over this series. So wouldn't be surprised if St. Louis pulls it out in 6.
No, I wouldn't be surprised at all. It just really depends upon which St. Louis shows up. So we'll definitely be able to see come tonight at 7, but definitely been exciting. I love talking playoffs. Playoffs are always an exciting time.
Yeah, that's my favorite time of the year, man. It's my favorite time of the year. Right now, you've got the NHL playoffs, the NBA playoffs. We're getting ready for the draft. All these things. Baseball just kicked off last month, so it's my favorite time of the year.
Yeah, so much going on. It's been really exciting, but I know there's a little teeny piece of NHL news.
I've been waiting.
That you've been beating all over social media. So at this time, the floor is yours.
The captain is coming home to Detroit. Red Wings fans rejoice.
Oh, where did I find this
guy? The captain is coming home. So, Steve Yzerman, thank you. Thank you so much. I know in his press conference, he was not sure if he was even going to have this chance to come back to Detroit, but he's going to come back and be the general manager for the Red Wings. He's been in Tampa since 2010, led them to a Stanley Cup, playoffs in 6 of those years that he was there. And Ken Holland is now going to be a VP, a senior VP, who's still going to be in an advisory role for Steve Yzerman, but he basically turned that franchise around in the culture of that organization in Tampa Bay. So all Detroit fans are so excited. My Facebook timeline is all Detroit Red Wings right now. My Twitter timeline is all just retweeting and reading all of these things about how Steve Yzerman is going to hashtag return to glory.
Oh, Jesus.
We're going to get that started, Detroit. Hashtag return to glory. And this is probably the most excitement as a Red Wings fan that I've seen in years. Years.
Just to put it out there, though, what happened with the Tampa Bay Lightning this year, though?
That has nothing to do with the GM. That is all the coach.
Okay.
Which, by the way, this is a little off topic, but have you watched his post-game pressers, the coach of Tampa Bay?
Yes, actually.
The guy looks clueless.
He does. He's look very clueless.
He looks like he just was on whatever Adam Gase was on in his introductory press conference for the Jets. That is what this guy, I can't remember the name off top of my head. I apologize. But that's what he looked like he was on. He was just like, yeah, the series, well, it's not over.
You know, maybe
just kind of stares off into space. It's like, dude, are you paying attention to the series right now? Wake up.
Well, maybe he was just trying to do his best Matthew McConaughey, you know? Maybe he was just visualizing and trying to stay calm because he knew the Lightning were just getting completely swept, and he was just trying to imagine himself as Matthew McConaughey in a hammock on a beach, probably on some type of illicit drug, trying to be as calm as possible because he knew he just took the best team in NHL history and lost the first round series in a sweep.
I wouldn't be surprised if he gets fired because of this. Like, he's had some good seasons, but in this day and age of playoffs, especially with a team like that, and you're expected to at least make the Eastern Conference Finals. At least. And with the way they ended it last year, losing 2 straight games to the Capitals, I wouldn't be surprised if he would be let go within the next few weeks.
Well, I feel like it's already pretty telling given you got your man back in Detroit that he kind of flew the coop after all this happened. And it has to be for a reason. And maybe it's because you have kind of a coach that, you know, you need to move on to maybe someone with a little bit more up there. So, you know, who knows?
But yeah, Steve Yzerman coming back to Detroit. We are so excited. The draft is coming up. Free agency. Get excited, Detroit. I'm so excited. I can't contain it right now. I'm trying to contain it, but
you're like a little schoolgirl who's just fangirling.
I'm like a kid on Christmas right now.
Who finally got the Super Nintendo he always wanted?
Yes.
And this is Final Score. So, thank you so much for listening to all of our awesome playoffs, but we're definitely going to cut to a quick commercial break, so definitely make sure you stay tuned, because when we come back, we'll have a little bit of MLB, AAF, and NFL news, and then we'll finally bring you what you've all been waiting for, and that's our 2019 NFL Draft Preview. Make sure you stick with us. We'll be right back.
Hey fans, here at Podcast City Network, we have a lot of great shows.
We have a wide variety of shows that cover the landscape in podcast, a podcast for anyone and everyone.
Such as The Chris Garnett Show,
The Everett Lee Show,
ELS Uncut,
Super Radio Brothers,
Imaginarium with Scott and Todd,
Forking Around with Cody,
The Grimlock Show,
and Films of Classic.
and you can catch these and a whole bunch more only on podcastcity.net or on all of our great social media outlets.
Head over to facebook.com/Podcast City Network. Hit that thumbs up. You can send a tweet to Podcast City Network on Twitter at Podcast City Net.
So make sure that you join us for all this only on Podcast City Network.
And we are back here on Final Score, only on the Podcast City Network. And because you know what, we got so excited with being live and everything going on, we didn't plug the important things, like the fact that you can catch Final Score on all social media, on Facebook at /PCN Final Score and on Twitter at PCN Final Score. Make sure you go give us a like and a follow on both of those platforms. And you can also catch and download all of our latest episodes on Podbean. Just go to pcnfinalscore.podbean.com, download all of our greatest, and make sure you subscribe so you can get notified every time we drop some new content. And then you can also go and catch us on Spotify, on Google Play Music, and on iTunes now. All you have to do is go search keyword Final Score, give us a follow, give us a like, go listen to all of our episodes, because we put out a lot of stuff nowadays. We put out, we're up to 11 episodes. Look at us
11
go.
episodes. How did we forget to plug our own stuff?
Because we got so excited, because we look so great on video right now. That's why. We got the lighting now, you know. We got Barry Sanders sitting over here behind us. You know, a lot of great stuff going on.
We're taking a step up in the world here.
We're moving on up.
Moving on up. That's a song, right?
Yeah, I think it is.
That's that song?
I don't know. I watch a lot of sports, so you know, I kind of get it confused sometimes. But anyways, moving on to all the other great things we have coming up. First things first, Major League Baseball Best of the Week.
Best of the week. For my best of the week, I'm going to nominate the Houston Astros. 9-1 in their last 10.
I know they've been killing it.
Little bit of a struggle, but I mean, they're too talented not to be good. And actually, they're tied with Seattle now at the top of the West Division. But 9-1 in your last 10, and they just actually won the other day. I think it was yesterday, something like that.
Well, you know who did win yesterday? The Tampa Bay Rays.
The Tampa Bay Rays
lost to the Red Sox. But anyways,
and hey, how are the Red Sox doing? They're like our not best of the week.
they actually would be
it's like the not top 10.
They are your little worst of the week. They are like in the bottom 5 teams in the league. We are at the bottom of the AL East.
They're 5-5 in the last 10, I guess.
Hey, we're 7-13. Chris Sale 0-4. You know, 8.13 ERA. But you know,
how bad has he been playing this year? Chris
It's been
Sale?
horrible. It's been horrible.
I feel bad for the guy because every post-game interview that he does after he has an outing, he just looks more and more frustrated. And he
really does.
He basically came out and said, like, man, I don't know what to say. He's like, I'm frustrated for my family, for my team. He's like, I'm letting them down, but he doesn't know how to fix it. So, I mean, I feel bad for the guy.
I really do too. But we're not talking about the bad part of the week. We're talking about the best of the week, like Houston going 9-1. But also, we have a couple win streaks going on.
Yeah.
Dodgers have won 6 straight. The Rockies have won 5 straight. Definitely some surprising teams coming up right now.
Yeah, the Rockies really struggled to start the year. So to have them have a 5-game win streak and now sitting at 8-12, they're 5 games back of the division from the Dodgers. But they really need to turn it around, and they've been playing a lot better lately. The Dodgers, they started really hot. They cooled off for a bit. Now they're getting hot again. Mm-hmm. We talked about this last week. That's what baseball is all about. You just got to weather the storm when you're not playing well, and hopefully guys can stay healthy. And a talented team like the Dodgers, they're going to be fine. They're 6-4 in their last 10, having won that 6 straight now, and they're 14-8 in their last 30 games.
Yeah, definitely can't go wrong with that.
Well, 22 actually, but whatever.
Who's being technical? But at the
whatever.
end of the day, it's definitely been an interesting season. You know, the New York Yankees have been kind of just muddling their way through, and a lot of teams that you look at that we thought were going to be real preseason favorites just really haven't really lived up to all the hype, it seems like. So it's definitely been nice, especially when you look at like the NL Central, where the Pittsburgh Pirates are leading the division right now. Who thought we were going to be saying that? So it's definitely going to be interesting, and we'll definitely see how the season shakes out as we continue to move forward. But there is a little thing that we saw pop up not too long ago.
I want an honorable mention here for best of the week.
Oh, that's right. There is an honorable mention.
There's an honorable mention. So Chris Davis of the Baltimore Orioles, finally, he was our best of the week last week because he finally broke his hitless streak against your Boston Red Sox.
Oh, yeah.
But he's got his first home run. He's on a roll, man. He's on a roll.
Yeah. Chris Davis, Baltimore Orioles.
He is on a roll. He hit his first home run also against your Boston Red Sox within the last week. So,
what a year to be a Red Sox fan.
What a year to be alive. But congratulations to him. Hopefully, again, this leads just he can get back to playing baseball and not have to worry about that awful hitless streak that he had. It was 0 of 55, I think it was. We said last week.
I think, 0 55 or 0 58. Still,
it was pretty bad.
It was ridiculous.
But congratulations to him. Hit a home run. He's on a roll.
He is on a roll, and hopefully he can keep it going. Not against the Red Sox, but see what happens. But to switch a little bit of gears here, we're gonna talk about a little thing that popped up not too long ago about a Chapter 7 filing that was discovered by the AAF, and what really did all this detail?
So it basically went into detail that, as expected, the league had no money. We actually shared it on all of our social media, Facebook, Twitter. It was broken by Front Office Sports, and they got a hold of all of the paperwork for the Chapter 7 bankruptcy that the league filed on Wednesday. The board, Tom Dundon and them, they had to they released that information. So what came out of that is exactly what you would expect. The league had no money. I think they had $500,000 in cash when they filed that bankruptcy. It's so sad to see that this situation has come up, and I mean, it's not surprising when how much they owed. They showed I'm trying to bring it up right now actually while we're waiting, but they had a lot of money owed to a lot of people. And it's not surprising why they went under after seeing the financials that were put out. Mm-hmm. So that to me is not surprising anymore. And it's getting to be a very, very sad story that angers a lot of people.
And that's the thing, is that when going into what the AAF was supposed to be, everybody was so excited. So many people had so many high hopes of what the AAF could mean to not only all these young men's lives who were involved as players, but also for what it could mean for the future of professional football in America, just because we had never really truly had a farm system for professional football here in America. So for all this to get started, get going, people got so excited, and then the cracks immediately started to form where you hit week 2 and you're out of money and can't pay payroll, quote unquote. And then Tom Dundon steps in, throws a whole bunch of money at the entire situation, trying to make it better, and then kills the season once we hit week 8. So I find it very interesting how all that came to be. But as we started going through the aftermath, all of the carnage that had laid waste, and seeing the inner workings of not only what was happening with these teams, but also what was happening behind closed doors with the league front office. It was a very sad situation to basically find out that the entire league was run on IOUs and we'll pay you laters, and the money just never was there. And honestly, I had always questioned too, especially when it came down to how Ebersol was, and we've had our conversations about Ebersol, and the way he likes to present himself is, to me, he's kind of like a snake who just would promise you anything just to kind of get where he wanted until the money was made, and until then you were just kind of high and dry. And I think maybe that's how he was trying to approach this but didn't realize that you have real people that are working for you. They had over 1,000 people that were employed just in the AAF organization alone, not including the teams and all their players and all of their staff. So to pay all those people, you're running on IOUs. You can't run on an IOU when you have actual staff to pay.
Yeah, the numbers from the filings, just got those brought up here. The league claimed assets of $11.3 million, but they had liabilities of $48 million.
Oh, that's
that
insane.
is a huge disparity.
That's huge.
Also, according to the documents, the creditors who have claims secured by property, MGM was the most. They were owed $7 million.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
Aramax Sports was $1.8 million. Silicon Valley Bank $810K. And then Ebersol finally was able, so he says, was able to speak about the situation. He actually had an interview with both CBS Sports and with the Sports Business Journal. And Ben Kirchhoff, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. He's a guy that we follow very closely on Twitter and get some information from. He actually had a chance to have a sit down with Ebersol and have a Q&A with him. And some of the questions that we read this before the show getting ready, and it was really apparent that Ebersol is trying to paint himself as not the bad guy here, that he was doing things the right way, and you could tell by some of the ways that he was explaining these things that he signed these contracts and he did this and he did that. He's the Superman of this situation, and he's the guy that everyone should be loving. But he sounds like a guy that's trying to play the victim and pass the buck and blame other people.
Well, he's a guy who doesn't know how to take accountability nor responsibility for the actions that he's taken in this entire situation. And that's the one thing I think that bothers me more than anything, because I try to be a very honest person. And if I can't follow through, I'm going to tell you as such. However, with Ebersol, I feel like every turn, like you said, is him trying to be a victim, him trying to play the blame game, him trying to pass the buck onto Tom Dundon, onto Bill Polian, and not accept the responsibility for his hand in what happened with the AAF.
Yeah, some of my favorite quotes from him was they asked about the early season troubles, financial troubles they had, even before going into week one. And his quote was that when, quote, I signed a contract for $170 million, it was vetted by multiple banks. So then they later asked him about, well, if you have $200 million roughly to start the year, how does all that money get burned in 1 week? And he goes, oh, wait, let me clarify. We only spent less than $30 million and we didn't run out of money. We just weren't able to gain access to that capital. So again, you're not getting access to liquid money that you need to run an organization. So there you go. He's dancing around the question. Oh, let me clarify this. Let me clarify that. Later, they ask him about who was misled or who wasn't misled. And he says, I feel exactly the same way. When we announced we were expecting 3 years. You think all my broadcast partners didn't vet us for financials, this and that. He's trying to say that it's all his. He's sounding like an egotistical asshole at this point.
Oh, he definitely is.
And I showed you the previous interview that he had on the Rich Eisen show when Tom Dundon signed on.
I was going to bring that up because when he was on the Rich Eisen show, and this is before everything really started breaking apart, and he's really trying to paint himself like he was some mastermind behind Tom Dundon coming in and being able to save the league and trying to act like it was all because of Ebersol. That's sick.
Yeah, he's trying to put all of this on Dundon's feet, and I don't blame Dundon one bit for pulling himself out of this bad business deal because of the fact that, yes, they had a 3-year plan, but Ebersol and Polian, to your point, they've made a bunch of IOUs. They had no liquid money whatsoever, so we all really, really wanted this to work.
Absolutely.
And I'm not surprised whatsoever that this fell through, because when you've got somebody, I'm not surprised if Ebersol is never trusted ever again.
Oh, absolutely.
There's no way he's ever involved in anything like this in the future because of this crap that he pulled over people on the AF.
Oh, absolutely. Because anybody who's going to be trying to do any kind of business, and if his name pops up, they're automatically going to think, oh, that guy with the AAF who totally let the league collapse and literally lied to everybody.
Yeah, misled people.
Yeah, exactly. And Ebersol at this point, I think, will be 110% done. No one's going to be able to trust him, especially with something on this type of pedestal of how epic this was, because this wasn't like, having like a little business venture that just fails off to the side. There was so many eyes and attention on the AAF, and even to the point where NFL people in the NFL were taking notice and were possibly trying to start getting things rolling towards making them a legitimate farm league, and all of that imploded. But you know who's going to come out sitting pretty in all of this? Vince McMahon in the XFL.
Well, this is all going to depend on what his partnerships and things like that are going to become. Mm-hmm. So his contract that he's talking about with the ESPN and Foxes of the world for getting their games on those networks, that'll be a really big thing for them to get solidified if they really want to have success. But the AAF had the NFL at their back. And what my question is now, Bill Polian, where does he go from here? He's been in front offices in the NFL. Does he get another job in the NFL? Does he go back to the ESPN where kind of he's still been as an analyst, or how do you think that works?
Well, Bill Polian, I feel like he is truly a victim in this because, again, Ebersol was running on everything on IOUs, and I feel like that he pulled Bill Polian in just because Bill Polian has been involved with the NFL, with NFL films and all this. So I feel with that angle, he was trying to convince Bill Polian that, hey, I got this. We can make this work. Believe in me. And Polian did. So I don't think it's going to affect Polian as much, but it still will be something that is going to come up on a regular basis with any type of new position he tries to take on.
Yeah, I kind of feel bad for him, but I mean, a lot of this comes back to Ebersol, kind of that what we've been talking about. And it seems like the more information that comes out about this situation and how poorly run it was, how poorly set up it was, a lot of this comes back to Ebersol because he's the one taking claim for it. He's like, this was my league. I set up these contracts, this and that. Oh, so you're the one that has been basically misleading everyone and telling everyone that, yeah, we're set for 3 years. Oh, but we don't have liquid cash to get through week one.
Yeah, that doesn't work that way. But that's
It's
why
not how businesses work.
No, it's not at all. You need actual liquid asset to make anything go. Go ask Vince McMahon. Even though his XFL failed the first time, he still paid for it all.
Yeah, and he actually, what was it? He settled contracts and honored them at the end of that year.
Yeah, he honored everybody.
That's been another big topic of conversation about who's going to foot the bill for the AAF to pay for the medical expenses for these injured players or get these players to go back home, or are they going to honor the contracts for the rest of the year?
Well, that was an interesting thing. If you caught any of the coverage that we did with the AAF when we broke the epic collapse, was the fact that a lot of players were claiming that they were told their injuries weren't going to be covered. Insurance wasn't going to be able to come through to pay for any kind of care that they needed. Players were not just going to be given their last game check and told, have a nice day.
Yeah, but they got a little tiny bonus to travel home, so
yeah.
that's okay.
Yeah, the $900 bonus just thrown on the last game check for whatever. But a lot of guys literally came back to hotel rooms, to places they were staying with all of their belongings, literally just sitting in the middle of a floor. And
actually, Ebersol addressed that in his interview with CBS Sports, and they asked him about it, and he said the hotels. They did business bad. It was their fault because they didn't call the league and ask them like, hey, we haven't been paid. Are you guys going to pay us? They just immediately kicked out all the players' stuff and said, no, you guys are out of here. So again, passing the blame onto somebody else.
Yep. And that's how
I think you see a common theme here with Ebersol.
Yeah, definitely a very common theme, and it's a very sad end. But at the end of the day, the one bright spot out of this entire situation is the amount of former AAF players, I should say, that are now signing NFL deals. I think now we're standing, at over 50 players, I think it is.
Over 50 players now. So that's really good to see. And that's kind of what you would expect out of a league like the AAF and eventually the XFL when it does launch, is that's going to be a stepping stone for players to have just more game film, more practice time, more scouts' eyes on them,
more chances
after
to
they're
prove
done.
themselves.
Yeah, after they're done in college.
Yes, most definitely, and that's going to be a big thing because the NFL. A lot of people just see the 53-man roster. You see roll out on game day every Sunday, but there's a lot more to the NFL than that because you have entire practice squads that you put your main roster up against, and a lot of people think, well, it doesn't get me in on game day, but you know what? That's still a good paying job for people that still want to be in the NFL. So for players to go out in game situations and prove what they have and be able to make it back into the NFL was the whole goal of this all along. So it definitely is something now because of the business side of the AAF. The AAF has fallen apart and fallen short, but the XFL, I think, will be able to pick up the mantle and keep it on going. But to take a look at someone who definitely is keeping it on going and just got paid, and that is none other than Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson has now become the highest paid quarterback in NFL history. Hit me with them contract terms.
4 years, $140 million extension for Russell Wilson. He now becomes the highest paid player in the NFL, making an annual per year of $35 million.
Oh, and let's not forget that he had a $65 million bonus added onto this too. So you want to talk about getting paid? You know what I love more about the whole thing, though, is how he announced it. Because if you've been following this in any way, shape, or form, Russell Wilson ended up giving the Seattle Seahawks a deadline of 3 a.m. Very interesting time to choose.
Well, it's 3 a.m. Eastern, which was midnight on the West Coast, which is pretty standard.
See, I didn't connect to those dots, so yeah. I appreciate that. That's why we got you. So at the end,
that's what I'm here for. I'm here to help.
Right? So Russell Wilson set this deadline, and right after they finalized the deal, you get a video posted on Twitter, onto his official Twitter page, of him and his wife Sierra laying in bed talking about how he just got paid. Because he did.
He did. So congratulations to him. Very well deserved, especially I believe he was he third or fifth round draft pick?
I can't even remember.
I think he was third. I think
it was third.
We could be wrong, but we apologize.
But we've been doing more draft stuff than looking at people's contracts. So, but a big thing I look at, though, is that with him getting paid like this, he isn't the stereotypical quarterback that's, that you would look for to be a franchise quarterback. He's kind of a mixed bag. He's very talented, not taking anything away from him. He definitely is a Super Bowl winning quarterback. But do you feel that Russell Wilson got paid because of how the markets of quarterbacks works these days? Or do you think that he truly got paid because of his talent?
The former. I think he got paid because of how the market goes. The highest paid quarterbacks are now making upwards of over $30 million annually. It's just a natural progression from a contract standpoint. Is he worth it to the Seattle Seahawks? Absolutely, he's worth it. Because outside of that team, you've got Doug Baldwin as your main receiver. Mm-hmm. Who's the other receiver they have? You remember?
No,
Top
I
of your
don't.
head? So they
went through a whole bunch of
those
them recently,
two. Yeah,
to be perfectly honest.
They have Doug Baldwin. They let some of their receivers walk. They let some of their tight ends walk. They have very little offensive weaponry on that team and no offensive line to boot. So he's been having to run for his life most of his games. Tyler Lockett, Amaro Darbo, David Moore, those kind of guys.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
No problem.
But outside of Russell Wilson, Doug Baldwin, they don't really have a whole lot on their offense. So you want to make sure that you can keep this guy locked up. Otherwise, if they didn't get this locked up by the deadline, there's a good chance that they're having to look for a quarterback in the first round, either this year or next year. Because if he was still, I think, going into the last year of his deal before he signed this extension. So, I mean, he would walk if he doesn't get that extension.
Oh, yeah.
So maybe not in this year's class, but next year's class that's loaded, they're probably looking for a quarterback.
Well, and you look at the fact that there's been a lot of teams looking for quarterbacks. Russell Wilson would have went on and gotten paid regardless. So either way, he would have gotten hit with this, because I absolutely agree. This is a market thing, not necessarily a talent thing, because Russell Wilson, while being as talented as he is and doing the things that he has done, the man is very lucky, just because you're seeing guys like Matt Ryan getting paid, and Matt Stafford recently got paid, and Tom Brady's still making a buttload of money, even though he keeps taking little pay cuts. But
he's not even in like the top 5, or I don't even think top 10
he just
anymore.
cares about winning now. He has the money. He has Giselle Bundchen as his wife. Come on now. He doesn't need money. But at the end of the day, though, a guy who might need a little bit of money is a guy he's going to be throwing to now, and that is Demaryius Thomas. Signed himself a 1-year deal and got paid $6 million by the Patriots, giving Tom Brady another large weapon, because this is going to be really good for him.
Well, this is also depending. He tore his Achilles last year as soon as he signed with Houston, so that is going to be a big factor in all of this. Is he able to come back and be even halfway as productive as he has been? And he's been declining in skill set and as he gets up there in age, so he's not going to be the flat out number one receiver that New England still really needs. But like you said, he's a big target. He's gonna be one of their go-to guys.
Oh yeah.
If needed, especially if he does come back healthy and back up to his past talent level.
If he can get anywhere near this past talent level, especially when he was in Denver, I feel that he will be able to make some great noise with Tom Brady. Kind of reminiscent almost to what Randy Moss did when he played with Tom Brady.
I think those are way two different things.
Well, to an extent.
Because he's coming off of injury. Randy Moss was coming off of a down year in Oakland.
Yeah, but that was Oakland.
With terrible, it literally is the black hole.
Literally is the black hole.
But he had a terrible quarterback there.
Did.
And I think it's different.
Yeah, but Demaryius Thomas is coming from Houston, which nothing against Deshaun Watson, but Deshaun Watson is still very young, and there's other weapons there. So Demaryius Thomas wasn't able to be that key guy, and then he got injured. Especially when you're playing with guys like DeAndre Hopkins, and obviously Will Fuller went down too. But Hopkins, when it comes to the passing offense, it runs through Hopkins. Mm-hmm. So with Demaryius, I don't feel he wasn't going to be that guy for them. But even coming off an Achilles injury, which, yes, is very big, especially if it doesn't heal right, you can always risk re-injury. He might not be, if it doesn't heal quite correctly, he might not run quite right, which could throw off
loses
his mechanics.
A step. Yeah.
But I don't feel that Demaryius Thomas is going to have those kinds of issues. He has such a great work ethic, and I feel he's someone who's going to be able to come back bigger, better, stronger, the whole schlemiel, and be able to really make some noise. Now, he's not a Randy Moss. Randy Moss is a quick speedster, able to run up under almost anything, and really had a great talent to be able to do that. Demaryius, though, he's a big-bodied receiver. He's a guy who can go up and get a ball and battle, especially in one-on-one coverage, and win those 50-50 shots. And I think that's something Tom Brady, to an extent, has been lacking and will lack now that there's no more Gronk.
Yeah, that's a big hurt right there.
Yeah, so I feel Demaryius Thomas is going to become a really great red zone threat just because of that big frame. He's going to be able to just bullet it in there, and Demaryius is just going to just absorb that ball.
I like your use of the word schlemiel. I've never heard of that. Is that a new word?
I don't know. I kind of make things up.
You just kind of make it up as you go.
Yeah, sounds good.
We like to freestyle here on Final Score.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, though, I feel he can make some noise. But you know who else makes noise? All these great shows and all these great sponsors that we have as part of this network. So definitely make sure you check out everything we have going on over at Podcast City Network. Just go to podcastcity.net. And also check them out on social media on Facebook at /Podcast City Network and on Twitter at Podcast City Net. But we have to actually cut and pay our light bills. Our new lights, they're expensive. I'm sorry. It takes power. So we definitely will be back in just a moment with the moment you all have been waiting for, and that will be the 2019 NFL Draft Preview, brought to you by Chris and Craig of Final Score. So definitely stay tuned.
Hey fans, here at Podcast City Network, we have a lot of great shows.
We have a wide variety of shows that cover the landscape in podcast, a podcast for anyone and everyone.
Such as The Chris Garnett Show,
The Everett Lee Show,
ELS Uncut,
Super Radio Brothers,
Imaginarium with Scott and Todd,
Forking Around with Cody,
The Grimlock Show,
and Films of Classic.
And you can catch these and a whole bunch more only on podcastcity.net or on all of our great social media outlets.
Head over to facebook.com/Podcast City Network. Hit that thumbs up. You can send a tweet to Podcast City Network on Twitter at Podcast City Net.
So make sure that you join us for all this only on Podcast City Network.
And we are back here on Final Score. I'm Chris, and this is Craig. I had to get it in there at least once.
You had to get in there once.
I didn't do it last time.
You had to try.
But I tell you what, we have come to the moment that everybody has been waiting for, and that is our NFL Draft Preview. I am so excited, especially since we're going to start with round one, and it's gonna be real exciting. There's been a lot of speculation on how this draft's gonna go, especially when it comes to the very first pick. A lot of people have been speculating when it comes to Kyler Murray, Nick Bosa. Who does Arizona take? But doesn't matter because you're gonna see our preview, and hopefully it's what happens. Because I can't take any more disappointment with my picks lately.
I think you're about to.
Don't say that. Don't say that. Anyways. To get things started, though, we're going to pop on over to our draft board here that you now see, our little draft preview board for round one. And we're just going to, just go ahead and just jump right into
just show the top 10.
So
let's do it up.
Our top 10, kaboom, kaboom. As you see, we definitely went different directions with the very first pick overall in this draft. With myself, I picked Nick Bosa because especially with the Cardinals, they do have a lot. I cannot emphasize it enough. So many needs across the board.
That they do.
But quarterback is not one of them. And that is something a lot of people have tried to dispute with me saying, oh, but Josh Rosen, he's not all that great. He only had like a 3 or 4 win season. It does not matter. You know why? Because Josh Rosen is a new talent. You know what Carson Wentz did in his first season? He went 7-9. Did you remember what Jared Goff did in his first season? Pretty sure it was 4-12.
Well, Jared Goff also had Jeff Fisher.
Well, you know what? I'll allow that one because we all know how Jeff Fisher is. So at the end of the day, though, Josh Rosen is a good quarterback. He just needs weapons. He just needs to have pieces put around him to help him get to the level he wants to get to. And you don't do that by getting rid of him a year after you draft him. So my pick is the Arizona Cardinals buck all the trends. Do not take Kyler Murray, and they take Nick Bosa, getting the best edge rusher in the draft.
Well, I agree. That should be the pick that they go because they do need those. They do need an edge rusher. They need help, a lot of help. But obviously, they're the first pick. But you don't go sign Cliff Kingsbury in his air raid offense to not take Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray is a guy that he's targeted even going back to when he was in high school. He wanted him to come to Texas Tech. If you bring in Cliff Kingsbury and do not bring in Kyler Murray, you could still run your offense with Josh Rosen, and he's still good. He's still the best. If he were to come in this class, he is still the best quarterback of this class. But Arizona Cardinals, again, I will reiterate, do not bring in Cliff Kingsbury without bringing in Kyler Murray. And with not having any offensive line help, you're going to need a mobile quarterback that can be like a Russell Wilson type guy who's faster, has a better arm, according to what the scouts say and all the tape that we've watched. But I don't see them going with Nick Bosa, even though they should, or they should go with Quinn Williams.
Should.
They need better interior help more than the edge rush, but I think they're going quarterback.
Well, you might be right, but we'll definitely check out. But looking down the rest of our list to our second picks, obviously you have Bosa going second now to the 49ers with Cardinals taking Murray. I, however, have San Francisco taking Josh Allen since Nick Bosa is already off the board. 49ers definitely need that edge rush. So being able to get the second best edge rusher in this class in Josh Allen out of Kentucky just makes sense.
Yeah, if it goes the way you fall, I could actually see them taking Quinn Williams there. But they do need, like you said, they do need both. My board, I do have Bosa going second because this is the best case scenario for the 49ers. Desperately need a pass rush, and they get arguably the best one in the class, and they get to pair him with D Ford on the other side. That won't hurt.
That's gonna be scary. That'd be so scary. But looking down at the next pick, the third pick, now with this third pick by the New York Jets, it is widely speculated currently, especially with a report that came out today, that the Jets are feverishly looking to trade back out of this third pick. However, with our draft preview, we have done this without any trades whatsoever, just because if you start going down that line, 18 billion different things could happen.
Right.
So we tried to do in the interest of saving our sanity, we did it in this format. So Jets stay at 3. I have them taking Quentin Williams because the Jets have great edge rushers already that are already had accounted for over 10 sacks last season together. But you look right at the middle of their 3-4 defense, and they have a man sitting there by the name of Steve McLennan, who's a 10-year vet who had no sacks, had no pass deflections, no nothing, and is literally just a big guy in the middle. So I see that the Jets are going to want to upgrade that position by going and getting Quentin Williams and having possibly one of the best defensive lines in all of professional football.
The Jets are going to have a tough choice between Josh Allen and Quentin Williams. So on my board, that's how I'm going to have it fall. It's going to be tough. But Josh Allen fits the need of a solid pass rusher, and he is one of the best in the class along with Nick Bosa. He could fit perfectly for the Jets as an outside 3-4. I could, again, though, this was a tough choice for me to go either Josh Allen or Quentin Williams. Like you said, in the middle, they really, 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 really need help.
Yes.
So I wouldn't be surprised if they go Quentin Williams. But there's a lot of pass rushers, so, again, we're not trying to look at speculating trades. They're a really good contender to trade down, though, here.
Oh, most definitely, most definitely. But looking at the fourth pick with the Oakland Raiders, this one is very interesting because we also received news recently about John Gruden and Mayock, the GM for the Oakland Raiders, sending home all their scouts. Now, what do you make of something like that?
I'm a little surprised, but not, because what I mean is, a lot of times when you get this close to the draft, the war room, if you will, gets very limited in who goes and gets access to it.
Oh yeah.
Other scouts and other people have come out and said that this is not too surprising that they limit access to the war room, but banning people from the facility altogether is a bit of a surprise. And I think they know what they're going to do, Mayock and Gruden, but they don't want any potential leaks getting out there, especially only being a week away from the draft.
Oh, absolutely, because something like that would be absolutely catastrophic to everything you're trying to do if you have something like that leak, especially considering at number 4, I have the Oakland Raiders taking Kyler Murray out of Oklahoma to be their future franchise quarterback.
It's an interesting pick. I could see them doing it potentially because they say that they love David Carr, but obviously they said that with, Khalil Mack and Amari Cooper, and those guys are gone.
Exactly, and I feel like now they're trying to do a big changing of the guard, so at this point you want to try and get as much value for the old guard that you can. So it makes sense to me that the Oakland Raiders would go and trade Derek Carr, which my speculation at this point would be to the Miami Dolphins, and pick up Kyler Murray to be your true new pivot for the future.
Interesting selection to pick Miami of all teams.
Well, no one else is going to need a quarterback when I'm done with this draft.
That is true. Your board does look a little different. I have the Raiders going with Quinnen Williams. They could go a couple directions. They could try to package 2 picks and go up to 1 to get Kyler Murray, or they could move down. I've seen that happen as well in speculation and mock drafts, but assuming that they stay put, they go with the best player available. Quinnen Williams is a monster, and he's arguably the best prospect in the draft, but they could go Devin White, linebacker out of LSU, just because of the speed that he brings to the table, and Mayock loves his speed. He loves guys that can go sideline to sideline. Devin White fits that bill. But I think they can't pass up the best prospect in the draft at 4 that falls to you. So I have the Raiders taking Quinnen Williams.
Oh, that's definitely an interesting pick. But one that's not as surprising, I guess, to both of us is our number 5 pick of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers drafting Devin White. We have both of that on both of our boards. So, hey, good job.
Yeah, they need a hole to be filled by Quan Alexander leaving, even though he was injured for most of the season. But they brought in Todd Bowles, so he's going to love the ability of Devin White for him to be coached, his work ethic, his speed, physicality. He should be a plug-and-play starter day 1 in training camp.
Oh, absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt. The guy is huge, and he is such a great dynamic player, plays with great speed, is able to get through blocks, amazing blitzer, plays great in coverage. The guy will be a day 1 starter. Now, our similarities and picks end there. As with the next pick, I picked that the New York Giants would end up getting their quarterback of the future, going out and getting Ohio State's Dwayne Haskins with their 6th overall pick.
I have them going in a slightly different direction. While I could see that, and the Giants should draft their QB of the future here, but as I've said on previous episodes, Gettleman feels like they do actually have a plan.
Yeah.
That said, there's a ton of defensive talent here on the board to just pass up on it. They traded Olivier Vernon. They traded so many players, and they got rid of players, and they look like a mess right now. But Gettleman has a plan. The Giants have a major need on the outside of the defensive line. Rashawn Gary, edge rusher, defensive end from Michigan, fits that bill. Teams love his athletic talents. He did play out of position at Michigan. He played in defensive tackle, probably should have been an end, but they had a lot of talent on that defensive line. Teams are hoping he can be a dominant edge rusher. He had a really fast 40 and had freakishly athletic measurables coming out of the combine and the pro day. So I have them taking one of the best talented potential defensive players on the board here, and they have a plan.
We'll see how that plan works out. They don't get a quarterback at all.
Yeah. But to your point for Dwayne Haskins going number 6 here, we've all seen reports of what they could do, what they couldn't do. People close to the organization have said that they've done way too much homework on Dwayne Haskins, and you don't do that much homework on somebody to not draft him.
Exactly.
So I could see them going QB, but I think they still get the guy that they want, who's actually higher on their board than Dwayne Haskins, a little bit later in the draft for me.
Ooh, okay. Definitely I'll see how that one works out. But looking at these next 4 picks, I should say, looks like we have a little bit of a theme between the two.
Yeah,
of us.
we're pretty spot on as far as what we go. And I haven't seen your draft.
Yeah,
beforehand.
And this is the thing too, is that we haven't really seen each other's picks at all. We did these completely independent of one another, just to keep the sanctity of individualism. And it's very interesting to see how some of these line up.
Yeah, for those 4 picks, we all have the same. Jaguars desperately need depth at the O-line to protect QB Nick Foles. Cam Robinson was out for 13 games. Andrew Norwell was out for 5. Brandon Lindner was out for 7. They released Jeremy Parnell into free agency. They have to go offensive line here. If they don't, Jags fans, start burning stuff.
Yes, immediately.
because your window is now, and they need offensive help desperately there.
And if you don't take an offensive lineman, you're probably going to have your nice new shiny Corvette sitting out in the driveway get wrecked because you don't have anything to protect them.
I have seen them potentially go with Ed Oliver here, but they have to go offensive line in our opinion.
Yes.
Montez Sweat, number 8 to Detroit. They have multiple needs, edge rusher, tight end, corner, but they're also in major talks to trade down here. They could also very likely go with TJ Hawkinson.
Yep.
To pair him with that offense to help out Matt Stafford. But the opportunity to pair Montez Sweat on the other side of the board, or on the other side of the line, with Trey Flowers is too tempting for Matt Patricia to pass up, in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely. That, and with what Montez Sweat brings to the table, he broke the fastest 40 time by a defensive lineman ever. He absolutely killed it at the Senior Bowl and showed exactly what he could bring to the table against top talent. The guy is amazing. And yeah, Detroit could take DJ Hawkinson here out of Iowa, but the big thing I see too is that they just recently picked up a tight end. So why go out and get another?
Jesse James isn't much of he's not your number one solid tight end, though. No,
but I don't think that with the type of offense that Detroit, I feel, tries to run, tight end's not always going to be the biggest place you're going to go to. Now, a lot of people would speculate with that, saying that, well, Ebron was a big pickup and he was part of that offense. But Jesse James, I feel, is like a serviceable piece. He's that guy who can catch a few passes here and there when you need him to, but predominantly will be blocking. So, while Detroit tries to take the ball more vertically. So, but I feel no matter how you look at it, Detroit has not had a really strong defensive front since I feel Ndamukong Suh was there. Yeah,
that group that they had when Ndamukong Suh led that defensive line was pretty dominant, and they're trying to rebuild it to bring it back to those days when we were making the playoffs. Actually had a chance to win a playoff game. But so I see.
Detroit
I know
winning a
sad.
playoff game. Aww,
I know,
that's so cute.
It's been forever, man. 1992 is a long time ago now. So we need to shore up that defensive line. We had 0 pass rush last year, and Ziggy Ansah always being hurt. Him walking away, we got to replace that. So it makes sense for them to go edge rusher here.
Definitely. And then we look down at Buffalo. We both had Ed Oliver. Now, Buffalo does have a lot of glaring needs across the board, but I feel getting a good pass rush is going to be something that's going to be very instrumental to them. A lot of people do expect possibly that Buffalo could take an offensive lineman here, given how many sacks they let up on Josh Allen. There was, I believe, 28 sacks let up in 12 games. So that's definitely something you want to address. But I don't think it's something they address now, just because there is a little bit of depth when it comes to offensive line. So they'll have an opportunity to be able to pick up one possibly in the second round. So with how this works out, though, definitely have Ed Oliver being able to come in and be able to help improve that pass rush immediately.
Ed Oliver's the number one guy on their board. All the reports I've seen over the last month or so, Ed Oliver's their number one guy. If he's there, that's a quick turn your card in. You got him.
Oh yeah, you'll be seeing that pick come in right after Detroit's.
Yeah, and Kyle Williams is retiring, so they need a penetrating interior lineman that can rush the passer. And Ed Oliver checks all the boxes, and they take him quick.
Absolutely. And looking at the last pick of the first 10, this one I feel is kind of a no-brainer for everybody at this point. And the Denver Broncos are going to take quarterback Drew Lock out of Missouri because we all do know Joe Flacco has been a great talent, but the key word was has. Joe Flacco is only going to be a bridge to a brighter future that's going to be known as Drew Lock. And Drew Lock is going to come in and hopefully right the wrongs that John Elway has created for Denver in the past with drafting mediocre at best quarterbacks.
Yeah, they really should be addressing their need of linebacker after losing Brandon Marshall, or at tight end with Hawkinson, who's a seemingly perfect fit from all the reports I've seen as well. But Elway, like you said, knows Flacco's only a bridge to the future, even though he said Flacco's still in his prime.
Yeah,
it's kind of weird, and reportedly he just loves Drew Lock. He can't pass up the chance to get his next franchise quarterback.
That's right.
Keyword
that's
next.
Right. Well, I feel like Drew Lock is a lock at number 10.
Pun intended.
Pun intended. But we'll definitely see how all that works out. It's definitely been interesting going through these first 10 picks. How you feeling so far?
I'm feeling really confident in my picks, and I think we're pretty close as far as what area these teams need to draft.
Absolutely, and I don't see anybody absolutely torching us yet in our chat live on Twitch at twitch.tv/Podcast City Network. So obviously we're doing something right, I guess.
We're doing okay.
We're doing
all
okay.
right.
But the key.
This is where it starts getting weird, though.
Yeah, this is where things are going to get weird. So as you see all these nice little draft picks that we have going on, we're about to switch it up. Because now we're going to bring in
11 through 20.
11 through 20, and it definitely gets a little interesting here. As I have at 11, Cincinnati Bengals taking linebacker Devin Bush out of Michigan and filling the need that they desperately need now, given the departure of former starter Vontaze Burfict, or however you say his name. We'll do NFL
Vontaze
names.
Burfict.
Oh, I did get it right.
You got it right.
I get NFL right.
You get it right.
I just can't do NBA.
You just can't do NBA.
And I can have to hockey. Yeah, they'll definitely want to try and address that because Vontaze was a huge talent in the middle for them in that defense. Now with losing him, they're definitely going to want to try and replace it with one of the best linebackers they can get. And Devin Bush being the number 2 linebacker on this board, it only makes sense. Even though that he does lack a little bit of ideal length, he doesn't always play through contact well. He does have a high motor, and his physicality is bar none.
That's what teams love about him.
And he's extremely versatile, too. So that's the greatness about him. So definitely Cincinnati Bengals with Devin Bush at 11.
His coverage skills have gotten a lot better in the last year as well.
Oh, yeah.
So for me, this pick comes down for the Bengals, offense versus defense. What do you think is the bigger need? They desperately do need linebacker help, as you aforementioned, Vontaze Burfict leaving. But this is an ideal scenario for new coach Zach Taylor, who was a QB coach for the Rams. The old regime is out. Marvin Lewis is gone. All his mediocrity is gone. Now you've got a quarterback that you know is not your long-term answer. Mm-hmm. Andy Dalton has 2 years left on his contract, so there's no rush to get your next quarterback on the field. I have them taking Dwayne Haskins out of Ohio State, and it's a little bit of a home seat seller pick, being Cincinnati and Ohio State.
Boy.
Columbus is not too far from there, but I think this is something they can really. Zach Taylor can put his stamp on the new regime of the Bengals. They do address their linebackers in round 2 in my draft, so they still get a decent pick here.
Definitely interesting. And I definitely could see something like that happen if Dwayne Haskins falls to 11. So that's very interesting. But looking at number 12, the Green Bay Packers, who seemingly have no weapons left in the cupboard, will go out and get who I think is going to be the best receiver out of this entire draft and will be the next Calvin Johnson Jr.
Wow.
Yes, I'm going
high
that
praise.
far. He's big, he's physical, he's lightning fast, bring you down the field, has a nasty release, and can go get 50-50 balls, and that is none other than DK Metcalf out of Ole Miss. Because at the end of the day, you look at Green Bay and their wide receiving core, what do they have outside of Devontae Adams?
Not a whole lot.
Exactly. You have maybe the custodian over there, and there's a guy over there who's fixing the water sprinkler. He might be a good receiver. So, but seeing as how the Green Bay Packers are not the Patriots and can pull just any old busboy on in to play wide receiver, they have to go get someone legit. And getting a DK Metcalf is someone who can be legit. And honestly, I feel if DK can come in and really leave his mark and show that he can ball, he could even take over Devontae Adams for that wide receiver 1 position.
I have them going in a slightly different direction. This is another team, though, as well as Green Bay could be a trade down candidate at number 12. People coming up to maybe get some quarterbacks or receivers or offensive linemen that'll be available here. But they have multiple options. They could use help on the O-line, linebacker, wide receiver, but new head coach Matt LaFleur heavily relied on 3 tight end sets during his season as the Titans offensive coordinator. Adding TJ Hawkinson gives Rodgers another weapon, can also help as a run blocker. He's the most complete tight end in this draft. But there is a strong possibility they could go receiver, but they've already got 2 other veteran tight ends, Jimmy Graham, Mercedes Lewis. I still see them going future with TJ Hawkinson here. Jimmy Graham is still talented. They might even start putting him at wide receiver because that's how thin they are. But I could see them going with Hawkinson here, getting the best all-around tight end and another weapon for Green Bay Packers and Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, man, that'd be scary, honestly, when you're looking at it. But as we continue down the list, Rashawn Gary will fall to 13 on my draft board to the Miami Dolphins, who will try and fill a defensive need. Miami Dolphins could go a lot of ways here, but with my prediction that Derek Carr will end up in Miami, Miami will not go quarterback, and we'll use Ryan Fitzpatrick as the backup to Derek Carr, and we'll bring in Rashawn Gary with their first pick, just because of the fact that Rashawn Gary will be the best defensive lineman on the board at that point, and because of the fact of how versatile he is and where he could play. It'll become something that the Miami Dolphins could really use to their advantage.
They definitely need help everywhere, but they're rebuilding their offensive and defensive lines this year. A lot of reports are saying that they're looking into pass rushers heavily because of losing Cameron Wake and Robert Quinn.
Yep.
It's a big position in need. I also have them going edge rusher, but Clelin Ferrell from Clemson is very high on their board from what I've seen. So I imagine this would be the direction they would go here and still take an edge rusher, but a little bit different here.
Definitely. I could either way though. They're going to have to go defense because they don't have one.
And they're waiting for next year to get a quarterback,
Tanking for Tua.
possibly.
Hashtag tanking for Tua.
You got Herbert, Tua. Who's another one that's going to be coming out?
You could even see
Trevor Lawrence, maybe.
Well, Trevor Lawrence, he was a true freshman, so he still has one more year. So
last year he was a true freshman.
Yeah,
he's got to wait 2 years.
Yeah, so he has to wait 2 more years.
Next draft would be available.
Someone like Ian Book could even be there. Just saying.
Ian Book? Wait, who is that?
Just saying. Anyways, so
nobody cares.
like anybody cares about those dirty blue and yellow Wolverines. Anyways,
I didn't say that. You said that.
I did, and I hope Michigan fans come at me. Come at me, bro. I'm on Twitter.
You will.
At PCN Final Score.
I know people.
You can also find me on Facebook at /PCN Final Score.
I love the plug.
I love it. Gotta always find a way to do it. But anyways, moving on to our 14th pick in the draft. The Atlanta Falcons are sitting in this position and are honestly in dire need of trying to revamp their defensive line a little bit. So I think they'll try and take one of the better edge rushers off the board in Brian Burns, who brings a lot of versatility and high motor. That's one thing I really like about Brian Burns. He has a great high motor. Is really good at grading upfield. Was a fast 40 at 4.53 and has ability to close quickly. And I think that's a big thing. A lot of the Falcons are really going to need, and what they're really high on is that you get him anywhere, he's going to close on a guy quickly. And that's something that you want. That way you don't have guys that are just busting runs anywhere and everywhere. So definitely look for Burns to start day one and wreak havoc all over the NFC South.
I also have them going defensive line here. But to point out, the Falcons are great candidates to try and move up because they really like Ed Oliver, Montez Sweat. They might be a good candidate to trade up to Detroit at 8 and swap picks there. But they were ravaged by injuries on defense last year.
Most definitely.
They really need help on the line. Wilkins is the best interior D lineman available, but I also wouldn't be surprised. I've seen reports they may go Brian Burns, who you have them taking at 14.
Definitely. But moving on to 15, which this has been one a lot of people have thought was a lock at one point, but now not so sure. I'm still going to go with Washington taking a quarterback, and they're going to take Daniel Jones out of Duke. Daniel Jones is a smart quarterback. It wasn't always the best statistically necessarily, but was always able to get the job done. And that's the biggest thing you always want out of a quarterback, is a quarterback that can get the job done. And if he can't get it done with his arm, he can get it done with his legs. A little bit of scrambling here and there if necessary. But again, is also a downside because he does kind of have a Michael Vick problem where if he gets scrambling, he tries to make something out of nothing. So that is something to kind of worry about. But no matter how you look at it, the Redskins need to address the quarterback position just because they do not know if Alex Smith will be available for the 2019 season. And honestly, I wouldn't leave my season in Colt McCoy's hands. So to me, it only makes sense that the Washington Redskins go and get Daniel Jones.
But they have Case Keenum now.
Yeah, but you see why I didn't mention him though? Because you might as well be Colt McCoy. What do you do in Denver?
Case Keenum, I'm agreeing with you. Case Keenum is not the answer. I have them going a bit different because this pick, I have them taking Marquise Hollywood Brown, wide receiver out of Oklahoma, because I have them actually swinging a trade with the Cardinals to get Josh Rosen.
Oh,
I've seen a lot of reports I've seen a lot of reports over the last couple of weeks that this could be a done deal.
Oh,
that
wow.
Redskins could go and get Josh Rosen. If they do that, then they don't need to draft a quarterback here. So I have them going with the explosion of Marquise Brown here, and they really need to make up for the loss of Jamison Crowder, who is now gone. But whoever their quarterback is next year, you still got to get that person a weapon, whether it's Keenum or if Alex Smith ever returns, you still need a quarterback. They fall in love with his explosiveness and the vertical element he brings to the offense, and he'll be a nice weapon for the soon-to-be newly acquired Josh Rosen for the Redskins. So they go Hollywood Brown.
You slay me. See, my biggest thing about my only problem with Hollywood Brown is that Hollywood didn't show up for pro day, didn't show up for the combine.
Yeah, he's got a Liz Frank injury.
Yeah, he had a Liz Frank injury, and I
wouldn't run with that either. Would you?
I'm not giving him crap. I definitely would not run with it because I hardly run as it is. But at the end of the day, it's just
run to the fridge, maybe, right?
Fridge what?
Yeah, fridge what?
Fridge what? But at the end of the day, it's just hard for me to see a team, especially that early, want to take a chance on a guy who really all you have is his game film. And not that his game film's bad, but you're not able to get him into the awkward situation known as the NFL Combine. You're not able to get him with guys that are a little bit higher talented at a pro day. So I kind of worry maybe about not only how he'll translate, but also the fact that he hasn't been on field and been able to train in some time. So I kind of worry that maybe a little bit of rust, a little bit of slowdown. But then again, that's what OTAs are for, right?
Right, and he's an explosive athlete, and that's really what the Redskins offense really needs. They desperately need that kind of explosive offense. So I wouldn't be surprised if they go receiver here no matter what. But the explosion of Marquise Brown, he's high up on some teams' draft board, so I wouldn't be surprised if Redskins do a Redskins move and draft him a tad bit too early.
Oh, that would be a Redskins move. But looking at the Panthers at 16, they have quite a few little holes that they need to fill on the defensive and offensive sides. I feel that they're going to go defense first, though, and get Clennon Farrell, the edge rusher out of Clemson, just because you get a guy like that. All those defensive linemen that came out of Clemson are beasts, are just absolute beasts. And Carolina really could use the pass rush help. So I do see the Carolina Panthers going out and getting Clennon Farrell with the 16th pick.
I was torn between this because I think they could go edge rusher or defensive tackle or something like that. So I initially had them going defensive lineman, but they could also move up the board to go get an impact defensive player they really like. Devin Bush is going to be a tempting pick here if he falls.
Right.
But
definitely.
They do need offensive line help for Cam Newton. Jonah Williams is arguably one of the best offensive linemen that are available at this point. One of the most versatile O linemen in the draft. I have them taking Jonah Williams here to help solidify that offensive line.
Very interesting pick. Very interesting. I don't have Jonah going for a little bit, but looking down at 17.
If he doesn't go at 16, he's going 18 to Minnesota Vikings because they are super high on him.
Oh, absolutely, because I have him going 18. But before we get to 18, I got to look at 17 with another offensive lineman, and that will be Andre Dillard out of Washington State, who is with some of the big edge rushers already being off the board at this point. The Giants are going to want to address that offensive line. You want to make sure that quarterback Eli Manning is going to be protected, and in my draft will eventually be Dwayne Haskins. So by adding the best pass blocker in the draft in Andre Dillard, we'll be able to help ensure that, especially going forward, because Eli is aging. I don't know if he's quite lost his peripheral vision yet, but you definitely want to make sure he's protected, and Andre Dillard is able to afford that. And let's keep in mind, this is also the 17th pick from Cleveland that was involved in the OBJ trade.
Correct. I actually have them going in a different direction because they did not draft Dwayne Haskins with the number 6 pick in my draft. I have them gambling, and the gamble pays off.
Ooh.
Daniel Jones, QB from Duke, falls to them. Falls. It's a new word. It's a new iteration on the word.
We'll add it to the final score dictionary that we'll have coming out at some time.
We'll have it attached on the website. It'll be fine. It'll be good. It's kind of like the Urban Dictionary, but the Final Score Dictionary.
Final Score Dictionary.
So while the media is not super high on Daniel Jones, they see him mostly as a borderline first-round pick at best. I have them going for that quarterback at number 17. Daniel Jones is actually coached by David Cutcliffe at Duke, who just so happened to coach another quarterback by the name, Eli Manning.
Oh, yeah. Funny how that works out.
Weird. I think the connection there, and they really Daniel Jones is the number one quarterback on their board from everything that I've seen. So I could see them waiting until 17. The gamble pays off. They get the quarterback of the future.
Definitely could see that. That's a good one. That's if Washington were to take him
and
at
then
15.
at this point in my draft, they already have a top defensive talent as well. Now you're solidifying 2 spots.
Look at you go.
Look at that.
So if you need a new GM,
right here. Again, as I mentioned to the Lakers last week, I'm great at my 2K drafts. I'm also great at my Madden franchise drafts. I'm waiting. My phone's right here. NFL teams. I'll be listening.
Oh my gosh, you killed me. Because then I'm gonna have to take your resignation from FinalScore. I don't want to do all that. I gotta find a new host.
I gotta find some competitive pay, man.
Well, yeah, I can't really argue that. But looking at the 18th pick, I have the Minnesota Vikings taking Jonah Williams at this point, offensive lineman out of Alabama. And what's interesting about this whole thing, the Vikings for the 5th straight year are going to enter a season returning no more than 3 of their starters off the offensive line. So there's been a lot of movement, a lot of fluidity when it comes to the offensive line. And that's not something you really want. You want to be able to have it solid. You want to be able to have it in place so it's not something you worry about, because every offense starts with the offensive line. So to be able to get some stability, they're going to go ahead and bring in Jonah Williams, who's a proven starter with a championship pedigree and brings the versatility that the Vikings truly need, because what's great about Jonah Williams is you can really slot him just about anywhere along the offensive line. So they'll be able to bring him in and slot him in where they needed to be able to afford maximum protection.
I also have the Vikings going offensive line. They probably would take Jonah Williams, who's the very top of their draft board, but in this draft, he's already gone. So they have a pick between, I would say, Andre Dillard, who I have them selecting from Washington State, or Cody Ford out of Oklahoma. But this is universally understood that the Vikings desperately have a glaring need of offensive line help to protect Kirk Cousins. But you get the picture where they need to draft.
Yes.
The freakishly athletic Dillard will help them move Riley Reef from the left tackle position, maybe to guard, right tackle, something else on the offensive line, because he is clearly not the answer at left tackle.
Oh, most definitely. And that's been atrocious at best. But looking down at 19 with the Tennessee Titans, I have them taking DJ Hawkinson at this point. DJ Hawkinson kind of falls a little bit because a lot of people aren't really prioritizing tight ends, I feel like, at this point, given the amount of defensive talent. People want trying to get the best of the best. So at this point, Tennessee will take TJ just because of the fact that Delaney Walker is aging, and he did not really produce at all last year. And they need a new weapon kind of over the middle to be that little escape valve for Marcus Mariota to kind of prove that he is still a franchise quarterback. So if Tennessee wants to build on what they were able to do last year, they're definitely going to have to get a guy like TJ and really feed him the ball, because even though Delaney Walker didn't do all that great in those 3 full seasons that he played, he was targeted over 100 times on Marcus Mariota. So if you can get a guy that can get in there and get catching, there you go.
There's a lot of tight end talent later that's still outside of the top, TJ Hawkinson and Noah Fant. There's still also more talent in like the second round area. Yeah. So I have them waiting on the tight end spot until later rounds. I have them taking Brian Burns, who's their edge rusher and their number 1 guy on their draft board from what I've seen. Mm-hmm. But they had a great under-the-radar free agency and got a lot of great pieces to bring in to help solidify the roster. And they brought in Cameron Wake. But they still have a need for a long-term edge rusher. Cameron Wake is, 37 years old?
Oh, Cameron Wake is up there.
Yeah, even though he's still playing at a high level, he's not your long-term answer. So they get the number 1 guy on their board in Brian Burns.
Absolutely. That's definitely a good pick. And I could see Tennessee going that route, because I feel like Tennessee in this pick is kind of a dark horse, because you really don't know where they're going to go.
They could go in a lot of directions.
They have I don't want to say a very solid team, but they have a pretty good team, and I feel it's one that could get themselves back in the playoffs, but they have to make the right moves to get them over the top. Because a big reason why I have them also taking tight end, I forgot to mention earlier, is the fact that Delaney Walker is entering his 14th season in the league and is coming off an ankle injury. So definitely going to be a very trying season if he's going to try and keep moving forward. But looking at the 20th pick to round out our 11 through 20 section is the Pittsburgh Steelers, who I have taking Greedy Williams, cornerback out of LSU, to try and shore up their defensive secondary. definitely going to be very dangerous if they're able to get this guy because he has a lot of speed, is really good in man coverage, and has very reliable hands. So it's definitely something they're going to want to walk out for, and he is a ball hawk. I mean, an absolute ball hawk. And has great length, great height, very effective in pressing man, good footwork, possesses a burst to close in on the football on comeback routes. The guy is just great, and I feel that he is the guy who's going to play to complement Joe Hayden very well and will be able to come in and fit great in the Steelers style of play.
Part of the reason that's a solid pick because I was torn between having them taking a corner, but I have Devin Bush falling to 20 here. There is no way they pass up this opportunity. This is best case scenario. Bush falls down the board, and the Steelers have been looking for a replacement for Ryan Shazier.
Oh, yeah, that is true.
This is a perfect fit for them if Devin Bush does, in fact, fall. I was going to have them go with corner, but Greedy Williams has been falling down people's boards. He's unwilling to tackle. As athletically gifted as he is, he does not want to tackle.
That is his only downside.
You can't do that in Pittsburgh.
Oh, no, you can. He's an arm tackler. That's part of his problem is that he tries to go in for those arm tackles. And usually if you have a guy, especially with Greedy Williams, because he's not the biggest corner, he's nice and tall, but he doesn't have a lot of weight.
Right.
So with that, he tries to arm tackle, and sometimes he gets shrugged off. So it is something Pittsburgh will have to work with him on if they do indeed pick him up. But I feel that all of his other bonuses to his play, I think it's just going to be more. It's going to outweigh things like that.
Yeah, that definitely could be the case. But if Devin Bush falls all the way to 20, the Steelers can't get their ticket up to the podium fast enough.
Oh, no, they definitely can't. They'll have to find the fastest track person in the room to go do it. But no, it's definitely been good though. We're going to move on though to our 21 to 32 picks.
End of the first round.
Kaboom, kaboom, and look at those. A lot of great picks in here, as you see. We'll start right out the top with the Seattle Seahawks. I have Seattle Seahawks. It looks like both of us have them going defensive line, but I have them going and getting Christian Wilkins, who falls a little bit to the 21st pick. And you got to keep in mind, Seattle only has 4 picks in this draft, period. So trading down here is a real possibility for Seattle, so don't be surprised if that happens. However, they do have to address their aging defense, especially in the trenches. And what better way than to go get a versatile Christian Wilkins? He's fast, he's sturdy, he can play literally everywhere, and he is a certified day one starter.
Initially, I had Seattle going in the secondary with a safety or a corner because they desperately need that part of the defense to be rebuilt. Mm-hmm. However, with Russell Wilson signing that monster extension, that now leaves defensive end Frank Clark's future with the team in doubt. Mm-hmm. He's next in line to get paid. He's making $17 million on a franchise tag, and they have not worked out a long-term deal. And within the last week, they have been openly open for business to trade him.
Yep.
So if you're going to do that, that shifted my focus to you got to go and get a replacement for him or at least help solidify the defensive line. And I have them going with Dexter Lawrence, defensive lineman from Clemson. He's the best defensive lineman available on the board at this point, and they get him for insurance.
Mm-hmm.
So I could see them going that, especially now with the Frank Clark issue coming up in the last week.
The only thing I worry about when it comes to Dexter Lawrence, which is something I definitely will touch on once I get to my pick, is just certain off-the-field issues. But we'll touch on that in a little bit. So looking at the 22nd
and his production has fallen off a bit, but he is too talented
I absolutely
at the next
agree.
level to not be a first-round pick.
Oh, absolutely. I absolutely agree with that. But looking at the 22nd pick for the Baltimore Ravens, I have them taking A.J. Brown, wide receiver out of Ole Miss, which is funny because you have them taking D.K. Metcalf, wide receiver from Ole Miss.
Yeah, we have a pair of Ole Miss receivers going here. I'll let you give your explanation for Brown here because I've got my reasoning for DK.
Well, Brown can literally do it all. The only reason I don't have them taking DK is DK's already off the board at this point because he's way too talented. But A.J. Brown, there's a reason he played opposite of DK Metcalf because he's just as talented too. When you're first looking at him, though, he does look like a running back. He does kind of have that size. But when you start seeing him play, he is so fast, and he was meant to play receiver. He is extremely smooth in his route running, and he also has incredible speed in hands and has one of the best run-after-catch abilities that there was in college football. He can break tackles, or he can break your ankles if in space. And that's the great. I was watching a little bit of game film on him when they were playing Alabama, and he literally goes up expecting the DB to come up and play him tough, going up for a 50-50 ball, goes up, gets it, notices he isn't there, literally stops in his tracks on a dime and changes direction, the opposite direction, and runs it down the field for a touchdown. Those are the kind of plays that the Baltimore Ravens are going to need. A guy who can get out in space and a guy who can make huge plays, and this guy will be your day one starter, and I feel will be your new number one wide receiver in Baltimore.
Solid argument.
I have him every now and then.
Most of the drafts and the scouts have all these receivers. They're not top 15 draft picks.
Mm-hmm.
So I have them all falling because of that. But with Marquise Brown, Hollywood Brown off the board here, DK Metcalf is arguably one of the other worst kept secrets as far as if Baltimore had the availability to get him,
right,
they're going to take him.
Definitely.
They desperately need to get weapons to surround Lamar Jackson. He's got the keys to the car now, so now you got to get some weapons for him. Ingram was a good addition, but they also have to address their edge rushers to replace the losses of Suggs and Zadarius Smith.
Yes.
But Metcalf has the potential to be the most intimidating outside receiver in this class because of everything that you mentioned when you had him going at 12, his size, his strength, his speed. He could be the potential number one receiver for Baltimore moving forward, but he's got to stay healthy.
Yeah, and that's going to be the big thing is staying healthy. But looking down further our board, we're going to go to our 23 pick, which both of us had Houston taking Cody Ford, offensive lineman out of Oklahoma. Houston
gave up a league-high 62 sacks last season. Mm-hmm. Enough said right there. You got to keep you got to keep Deshaun Watson healthy long term. And he's the best offensive lineman available at this point for both of us, so this is a no-brainer for me.
Oh, it really is, and he will be the best available. And what's great about Cody Ford is he's also very versatile. He can play guard, he can play tackle, and when he was playing tackle at Oklahoma, he did earn his all Big 12 honors playing tackle. But the guy can really slot in anywhere you need him to. The only thing about him is that he's not quite as explosive when really hitting blocks on defenders, but he doesn't ever really give up ground either, so it's something you can kind of live with. Because he's not necessarily a poppy guy like Jawan Taylor, but he definitely will be a long-term offensive line answer for the Houston Texans.
Once in a while, we get similar picks.
We do every now and then.
We're at least in the same ballpark most of the time.
Usually. But with this next pick, though, not so much.
Not so much.
Looking at this pick, though, with the Oakland Raiders, since I already had the Oakland Raiders going and getting a quarterback early on, they need to go ahead and address their defense. So they do that by going and getting quarterback Byron Murphy out of Washington, who's a really good team. A lot of NFL teams really loved his drill work at the NFL Combine, and he ran a pretty good 40, 4.55. Not the quickest, but not the slowest.
It's still fast.
It's still fast. But the thing is that while he may be a little bit undersized, he's a very tenacious defender.
That's what I've seen a lot of that too. He's a tenacious defender.
Yeah, very tenacious. And, honestly, I kind of feel like Oakland has kind of been missing that tenacity ever since they lost. Oh, yeah, who was that guy? Oh, yeah, Khalil Mack. So...
And this is the pick that they got in the Khalil Mack trade at number 24.
Funny how that works.
Weird. I also have them going corner, but I have them taking Greedy Williams from LSU. He is the best secondary player available on the board. Byron Murphy's been falling down a few people's draft boards over the last few weeks, so I wouldn't be surprised if he goes a little bit later than 24. Mm-hmm. But the Raiders were in the bottom 10 of the league in 2018 in interceptions. Yep. They need some playmakers on D. Greedy Williams is arguably the top player in this class, and just all the reasons you said earlier of why he would get drafted, that is why I think he goes to the Raiders, and Gruden and Mayock are going to love just the potential oozing from this kid.
Oh, they absolutely will, because the guy is a great, great talent. You definitely aren't going to be able to miss a guy like that. But looking at our coveted 25 pick, this is one I hold a little near and dear for my Eagles. But we go and get safety Chauncey Gardner-Johnson out of the University of Florida. Now, this guy isn't the biggest. He's only 5'9", 210. And he's not necessarily the fastest. He only ran a 4.4 40-yard dash. But
fast.
But he's still fast, yes. But his size and speed are what teams are going to look for in a deep field safety. So with him, though, he has great range and great closing speed. And that's something you really want in a safety because he's able to disrupt the passing game and go up, get past deflections, be able to throw guys off in 50-50 ball jumps. And he's going to be a guy who can also come come up and play in great run support. He was able to get around blockers, able to weave himself through defenders easily to be able to get to the ball carrier. So definitely look for him to be a great contributor and a great complement to an aging defensive backfield.
I also have the Eagles going with Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. Converted, he can play both safety and corner. Mm-hmm. He's not the number one safety on anyone's draft board,
no,
but
definitely not.
His versatility can bring some different skill sets to the Philadelphia Eagles. He's got cover skills. He can play near the line of scrimmage. He can blitz from the slot. And the Eagles were the third worst team against the pass in 2018. You have to help solidify that secondary if you're the Eagles.
Yeah, definitely, or we're going to be getting killed a lot.
So we both have them going with Gardner-Johnson from Florida because of the fact of his versatility there.
Exactly, and that's something that's going to be a huge coveted need for the Eagles. But looking at the 26th pick with the Indianapolis Colts, Dexter Lawrence, defensive tackle out of Clemson, will be the person I think they take. And Dexter Lawrence, like I was mentioning earlier, the big thing with Dexter Lawrence, he's a great physical talent. He's honestly kind of a freak almost. And he literally can do just about everything. But the only thing I worry about with him is off the field kind of things, especially seeing how he was suspended at the end of last season and because he ended up being testing positive in random drug testing for a muscle growth hormone. So that's definitely something you kind of want to keep an eye out for.
Interesting.
Yes, definitely something you kind of want to keep an eye out for with a guy like him, just because that could end up becoming an issue in the future. But hopefully he'll be able to reel it in and be able to get things going and not have those types of instances pop up, because you don't want to be a distraction for a team, especially if you're getting drafted. So I do feel Dexter does fall to 26 just because of concerns, but because the Colts really do need a little bit more push up the middle on their defense, they'll take Dexter Lawrence because you can't ignore the talent of a freak like him.
Very true. I have the Colts also going defensive tackle, but a little bit of a different direction. I have them taking Jerry Tillery out of Notre Dame.
Notre Dame?
Yeah, that school. It's a hometown pick for them. But I have them going with a hometown pick, Jerry Tillery from Notre Dame. They're going to look to shore up the interior of their defensive line, which is universally seen as their most pressing need.
Definitely.
They will have their pick between Tillery and Jeffrey Simmons, who he's a very, very talented defensive lineman, arguably a top 10 talent, but he tore his ACL. I don't think they're going to want to wait for him to get healthy before they bring him on the field. Mm-hmm. So they pick Tillery, who's arguably the best fit of this group, possesses raw talent, unique size. He's 6'6", and he shows flashes of dominance last year for the Fighting Irish.
But the biggest thing that you mentioned there is flashes of dominance, because his biggest problem was consistency. And with consistency, it's something you're going to need when you're going into the NFL, because if you can't stay consistent,
True.
It'd be a huge hurter.
True, but their defense was greatly improved in 2018 with kind of a lackluster roster on defense.
It really was.
They overperformed, so I wouldn't be surprised if they get the most out of Tillery here in this spot. He might be a guy that's not going to play a whole lot in the first year, but you'll see a lot of improvement from year 2 to year 3 if they keep the same coordinators in check.
I definitely have to agree with that one. But looking further down our list as we go, we look here at the 27th pick, the other Oakland Raiders pick in the 20 section.
The Amari Cooper trade.
The Amari Cooper trade. Yes, and I have them going out and getting Noah Fant, tight
Weird,
end
so do
out of Iowa.
Weird.
Hey, funny how that works out. Well, let's see what your reasons are first.
So Jared Cook was their top receiving threat for Derek Carr last year. He's gone. He's in New Orleans. He caught for over 800 yards last season, and they signed Luke Wilson, who's another kind of a never developed into a top tight end guy. He's been more of a role player in Seattle and in Detroit. That was a flop of a signing in Detroit. So now he goes to Oakland. They still don't have a number 1 tight end. Noah Fant gives Derek Carr a reliable weapon on third down once again.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. But for me, not only will it be for Derek Carr, but it's eventually going to be for Kyler Murray.
Oh, that guy they drafted at 4 for you.
Yeah, that guy they drafted at 4. He's going to be a great piece for him. Nice little release valve. But as we continue down our list, we look at the LA Chargers sitting at 28. And, hey, that looks familiar. Caleb McGarry's going in both of ours to the Chargers at 28, offensive lineman at the University of Washington.
I was also back and forth on this, too. I felt like they could have gone in a couple different directions.
Oh, definitely.
Offensive line help, they really need to solidify the right side of their offensive line, and McGarry would be an immediate upgrade at right tackle for the Chargers.
Exactly. He was an all Pac-12 player in 2017 and 2018. He played tackle in college, but the one thing about him is they do worry about his lateral quickness. So with that, they think that he might be able to be slotted inside at a guard if he doesn't develop quickly enough with his lateral quickness. Just because you want to be able to have, with an offensive lineman, have lateral quickness so you can take on the NFL caliber pass rushers that are really going to try and bull up field or just try and make any kind of speed move they can to get around you. So that is a concern, but he is a great talent and easily can slot in as a guard for the LA Chargers. But as we keep going down the list some more, we look at the Kansas City Chiefs, who seemingly kind of jettisoned part of their defense this offseason in Justin Houston and Dee Ford and Eric Berry. But they're going to need to replace those guys because you can't just have air there. You're just going to score points on you all day. So with that, they go out and get DeAndre Baker, cornerback out of Georgia. And while the Chiefs do have offenses for days and are one of the most prolific and probably will be the most prolific next season, they definitely have to fill these needs and fill these holes they now have that they created themselves. So it makes sense to go out and get the Jim Thorpe Award winner and have him come in to turn this defense into the right direction.
I also have them going corner. I do not have them going DeAndre Baker. I have them going with Byron Murphy, who you already have off your board.
That's right.
But the Chiefs, as you mentioned, really need an infusion of talent in their secondary. At the combine, the teams, as you mentioned, loved his drill work.
Oh, yeah.
But he's a bit undersized at 5'11", but they sorely need his tenacious defense that you mentioned a few minutes ago. But they can't really go wrong here with the corner pick. But I have them taking Byron Murphy, who's arguably the best corner available on my board.
Oh, most definitely. That's definitely a good pick. But they're going to go corner either way because they really do need that defensive help. So as we look down at the 30th pick of the Green Bay Packers, I have them going and getting a safety. Now they got themselves a little wide receiver on the offensive side. Let's go ahead and take care of that defensive backfield, and they'll go out and get Nasir Adderley out of Delaware, another small school guy, which, if I'm not mistaken, Joe Flacco went to. So
the Blue Hens.
But Adderley, he's a converted cornerback who's able to cover in the slot or play in the center field. He plays hard. He plays fast. But most importantly, he plays smart. And his athleticism and versatility will really make him a great fit in Green Bay's defense as he lines up next to Adrian Amos in the defensive backfield.
I was torn. I wanted to pick a safety here as well. And I was about to have them take Adderley, but here's a name that you're going to see rise up a lot of draft boards over the next week. Chris Lindstrom, offensive lineman from Boston College.
Great talent.
Over the past few weeks, he's really been coming up people's boards. He's a versatile guard that could also potentially play some tackle. They grab him here in order to solidify the interior of the line. Brian Bulaga is on the last year of his deal. He's 34 years old. He's somewhere in that range. Yeah, early 30s.
Older than you need to be an offensive lineman.
But they need to help solidify the interior of that line long term. They could reach out up a bit and get some linebacker help, which they really, really need. I wouldn't be surprised if they also look at Mac Wilson of Alabama here at linebacker.
Oh, they definitely could, and they definitely could use that kind of help, especially with what they're trying to do. But I feel that taking care of that defensive secondary is going to be a big need, especially after the departures of Ha Clinton Dix and things of that nature during last season. So yep. I feel this is definitely going to be a big hit for them.
I do have them taking safety in round 2. And actually, you'll be kind of surprised at who it is.
Oh, we'll definitely have to see. So to get there, we got to move on to our next pick, which for me will be with the LA Rams, will be Jerry Tillery, who you already have off the board at this point, defensive tackle out of Notre Dame. And since the Rams have no second-round picks, it makes sense for them to trade down and get more picks. So don't be surprised if the Rams do trade back from this selection. However, with how we have our format, we're not doing that. So they're going to go and add Jerry Tillery to be able to try and fill the hole that Ndamukong Suh left behind and bring in a very talented defensive tackle that has the ability to really start sometime this upcoming season and really be a good rotational piece for them, given the loaded defensive line the Rams have. So the only concern, like I mentioned earlier, is that consistency. But the big thing I look at with this pick and why the Rams will take him is that even if you show flashes, you have so much talent around you on defense that more doorways are going to open up for you to be able to capitalize than you would possibly in any other defense.
That is the exact same explanation of why I have the Rams also taking defensive linemen, but I have them taking Jeffrey Simmons of Mississippi State. So they could go a number of different ways. Like you said, they could trade down. They could go offensive lineman to help solidify the center position or the guard position, defensive line or corner with, of course, Aqib Talib and Peters. Those guys are getting older. So they need to fill the gap that was left by departed Ndamukong Suh. Simmons, as I mentioned earlier, is seen as a top 10 talent before he went down with a torn ACL before the combine in February. But he won't be healthy until midway through the season, best case scenario. But when he returns, man, the Rams will have a dominant young player in the middle of that defense. They get a steal in value if he gets to fully recover and lives up to that top 10 potential. Oh, yeah, and playing next to Aaron Donald doesn't hurt either.
No, playing next to Aaron Donald certainly does not hurt in any way, shape, or form. But definitely an interesting pick. So we move on to the last pick of the first round, owned by none other than our defending Super Bowl champion New England Patriots. Don't know how they completed the Infinity Gauntlet, but for some reason they did. God help us all. But I have them taking a chance because they are, worth it, I should say, going into all the speculation at wide receiver, the only returning Julian Edelman, obviously losing Gronk as well. But they bring in Demaryius Thomas, who, like you said, is coming off that Achilles injury. So I feel they still need to add some depth. What better way than getting the guy who's going to fall all the way down to the end of the first round in Marquise Brown, Hollywood Brown, wide receiver out of Oklahoma. And this will be one of the best steals of the draft. Because as we know, he was unable to participate, like we mentioned earlier, in the Combine or his pro day because of that Liz Frank injury. So the cousin of Antonio Brown, though, I figure will be making a day one slide all the way to this pick. Just because I don't think teams are going to want to take a chance on a guy they haven't really seen run outside of, his game film. So he may not be the biggest, but the thing is, he will kill you, absolutely kill you with speed. And that's something that can be very dangerous when you have a guy like Tom Brady throwing to you. So if you have Tom Brady just heaving it up, I see Marquise Brown being that guy literally that can run under it like a Deshaun Jackson. So like I said, though, with Edelman and Demaryius returning, though, Marquise Brown probably would figure to slot in as your wide receiver 3 in this scenario, probably in your slot. And what is now becoming a loaded wide receiver core.
Yeah, that'd be a crowded wide receiver room. I actually, again, was back and forth on it. There's a couple different ways they could go. I also have them taking a wide receiver by the name of Brown. However, I have them taking A.J. Brown from Ole Miss at number 32. I was back and forth about have them taking maybe a edge rusher with the departure of Trey Flowers, and they were losing a few guys on their line. They could go that direction, but Brown is a big, quote, big slot receiver who played alongside DK Metcalf, as you mentioned.
Oh, yeah.
But he's tough after the catch. He has big playability, gives Brady another weapon alongside Edelman and Thomas. I could see them going Hollywood Brown if he's there, but he's only 5'9". He's a very small receiver. Demaryius Thomas is not going to be your number one big-bodied receiver. They need another guy that's bigger than a 5'9" short of stature Hollywood Brown. That's the reason I have them going A.J. Brown here.
Well, it definitely does make sense. But either way, they go wide receiver. So that's the big thing we look at. And A.J. Brown possibly would be a very dangerous weapon for them in New England. But that has been our first round, man.
First round's over.
How you feeling so far?
Some of them I was really back and forth on, but I feel really confident in my picks. And once we get into round 2, it start falling like dominoes. We kind of have a feeling of where teams are going to go based on what they've already drafted. And there's a lot of names on here that could have gone in round 1 that are going to show up in round 2.
Oh, most definitely. It's definitely going to be interesting how a lot of this shakes out. So I guess we should just jump right into it.
Let's do it.
Let's go ahead and do it. So now we're going to be go ahead and hitting you with round 2 of the 2019 NFL Draft Preview Show, brought to you by the guys over here at FinalScore. So as we take a look over, let's go ahead. We need to drop this one, throw in the 2, and let's take a look at these picks. So first things first, boom, boom. We got Arizona Cardinals right off the rip. I have the Arizona Cardinals taking Garrett Bradbury, the offensive lineman out of NC State. He does play as a center at NC State. However, he can fill in as a guard as needed. And seeing as how the Arizona Cardinals already got their edge rusher, Nick Bosa, why not flip over and get a good offensive lineman for the offensive line? So they go out and they get him, and they need him badly because Rosen 52 sacks allowed last year. Dude got hit a lot. And they need to generate some offense because they were last in literally every offensive stat that can be mustered. So Arizona definitely needs to get the ball rolling by getting an offensive lineman, and Garrett Bradbury can definitely step in, like I said, at center or at guard. He's big, he's strong, but the biggest thing is he's a terrific blocker.
They definitely need a lot of offensive line help. I have them going in a slightly different direction. I have them going with N'Keal Harry, wide receiver out of Arizona State. The reason being, yes, they need offensive line help. However, Cliff Kingsbury, air raid offense. The Cardinals need to eventually find a replacement for the ageless Larry Fitzgerald. N'Keal Harry is a big weapon with excellent ball skills. He could really develop into their number one receiver to take over for Larry Fitzgerald when he does inevitably retire. And especially with Kyler Murray, who I have the Cardinals taking, with him slinging it down the field, just throw it up and let N'Keal Harry go get it.
Harris.
N'Keal Harry.
You have Harry? I have Harris.
It's N'Keal Harry.
It's Harris.
No, it's not. Stop.
This guy.
N'Keal Harry. Eat
Well-
your words, son.
Well, then you put it in everything wrong.
No,
Or
I didn't.
CBS got it wrong. Either
CBS
way.
got it wrong because look at my board has N'Keal Harry right here.
Where's my CBS board? Mine says Harris. Either way, though, N'Keal Harry, I think.
Just take this L, sir.
I've taken enough L's. Okay, I took 4 in a row. Thanks, Tampa Bay Lightning. But anyways, though, I have N'Keal Harry going second pick of the second round to the Indianapolis Colts. Now, the big thing with that, though, is that the Indianapolis Colts, they have T.Y. Hilton. They do have Devin Funchess. However, T.Y. Hilton, absolutely entrenched wide receiver number 1. Great. He's going to be great there. He's not going to be moved from that spot. Devin Funchess, on the other hand, came in on a 1-year, $10 million deal. And Devin Funchess was not even good enough, I feel, to be the wide receiver 1 in Carolina or the number 2 in Carolina, yet they're going to try and push him as the 2 here in Indianapolis. I think that only lasts 1 season. And N'Keal Harry is going to come in and be the guy to replace him as the wide receiver 2 once we end up getting into 2020. And the thing that they need anyways, though, is the depth. That's a big thing for the 2019 season, is that you need that wide receiver depth. That way, Andrew Luck actually has something to throw to. And N'Keal, he had showed great route running, has strong hands, but a big thing is blazing speed. So definitely could be a great addition to the Indianapolis Colts wide receiver core.
Devin Funchess is an interesting story because he was that converted tight end, played tight end for the early part of his career at Michigan, only moved to receiver because of necessity. Because of necessity that he had to move to the outside. And then, of course, he's been playing as that receiver in Carolina, and he's had some decent work, but yeah, they definitely need another weapon there. I have the Colts going on defense for this pick. I have them taking Jonathan Abram, the safety out of Mississippi State. This is a guy they really, really like, but all of their top wide receiver targets are off the board in this mock for me. They really like Hollywood Brown. They're not going to get Hollywood Brown. He's already gone. But they can take Abram to pair with Malik Hooker back in the safety spot. And this guy, from all the reports I've seen, he's a thumping safety. He's a guy that comes in, can play press. He can play and hit guys with authority. I think that's something they definitely need to shore up on their defense. And also later in the round, I have them taking a receiver and addressing that need. So they take the top safety arguably the top safety on the board here in the second round.
Definitely an interesting pick. But looking at the Oakland Raiders sitting here with the third pick of the second round, both of us have them taking Josh Jacobs, running back out of Alabama, and possibly the best running back on this board. Not a lot of big running back prospects coming out this year. The top 2 of them coming from the same school, funny enough.
There's a little bit of potential for later in like a third round, fourth round for running backs to go off the board very quickly. There's a lot of late round talent for running backs, but I agree. On the top of the board, the first one doesn't go in the second round. It's a pretty rare thing to happen in the NFL draft, especially in the last 10 years or so.
Definitely.
But this gives one more weapon to Derek Carr. He's the best running back in this class. He's also a weapon in the passing game. But, oh yeah, the Raiders were also in the bottom 10 in the league in rushing last year.
Yes.
So you need to shore that up.
Because they ended up with injuries to most of their backs. Doug Martin never really got going. You ended up with excuse me, Marshawn Lynch ended up injured. They had a third running back. I can't even recall his name because he didn't do anything. So the thing you're looking at with Josh Jacobs coming in is he does bring a very versatile style because not only can he run, he can catch too, and has drawn a lot of comparisons to Saints running back Alvin Kamara.
Yeah, I think they definitely go running back here. So
definitely go running back. So looking at for San Francisco 49ers, I have them going and getting safety Taylor Rapp out of Washington to be able to shore up their defensive secondary, which honestly does need help at this point because they are pretty thin in the defensive secondary.
I agree. I have them going offense in this part of the top half of the second round. I have them taking Deebo Samuel, wide receiver, out of South Carolina. He's a crafty route runner. He excels after the catch in those short to intermediate portions of the field. Kyle Shanahan, the West Coast offense, they'll find ways to get him the ball and be another weapon for Jimmy Garoppolo. They have to address that from this past year, not having much help at the receiver position.
Definitely. That was something that they really struggled with. So looking at the 5th pick of the second round, we have the New York Giants back on the clock. And I think they're actually going to go defense and go get what's going to be their new LT, Jalen Ferguson, edge rusher out of Louisiana Tech.
I have them going offense here. They do still need to get some help on the defensive line, but seeing as I have them taking Rashawn Gary at the top of the first round at 6, and then their quarterback as a second pick, they need to help solidify that offensive line, no matter if Manning's going to be the quarterback or Daniel Jones is the quarterback. So they get a great value here in the top of the second round in Dalton Risner, who potentially has been seen as a first-round pick in some mock drafts out of Kansas State. So this is a great value if you get him in the top of the second round.
Definitely. So moving on to the Jags pick, number 6, 38th pick overall, I have them, and a lot of people are going to call me crazy, taking a second offensive lineman in Chris Lindstrom, who in my draft drops into the beginning of the second round. Now, people do call me crazy for this one, but because of the versatility of what the Jacksonville Jaguars are able to get with Jawan Taylor and Chris Lindstrom, that offensive line now becomes one of the better lines in the league.
Yeah, if they play up to their potential, and they definitely could make that offensive line very, very formidable in the AFC South when you've got pass rushers like J.J. Watt and Clowney just in Houston alone to have to contend with twice a year. I have them going offense, and I have them going with Hakeem Butler, wide receiver out of Iowa State.
Ooh.
Marquise Lee's coming off injury, and even when he's healthy, he is not. I repeat, he is not a number 1 outside wide receiver, regardless of what you'll hear from the people in Jacksonville. They love him. He is great, but he's not a number 1 wide receiver. Hakeem Butler is 6'5". He's a big-bodied receiver, gives Nick Foles a big target for that passing offense to help get the ball down the field.
I'm not going to lie. I really like that pick. I think that's a very interesting one because
they're really high on him.
Throwing to him. That's just, I can see money all day with that.
They've also been seen in some mock drafts as going with Deebo Samuel, but in my board, I don't have him available there. They take the next best wide receiver, and they do need a big-bodied number 1 receiver. They still have DJ Chark, who they drafted last year. He's got to step up and play well, but imagine that kind of a trio of DJ Chark, who was the fastest receiver last year, Hakeem Butler, 6'5", big receiver, and having Marquise Lee as a third receiver. That offense could look really scary if they all play well.
Man, I bet you Jacksonville's so happy they moved on from Blake Bortles. Because imagine having all that talent, but having Blake
and no
Bortles.
one to throw to.
Oh, man. But yes, as we look down more of the board, we move on to the Tampa Bay Bucks, sitting with the 7th pick of the second round. And I have them taking Rock Ya-Sin, cornerback out of Temple, helping shore up their defensive secondary.
I also have them going corner, but I have them going a different direction. They continue to build out this defense. I have them going with DeAndre Baker, the corner from Georgia. He's considered as a first-round talent, but I think his size and his lack of 40 at 4.55 that you mentioned earlier slips him out of round 1 down into round 2. Tampa Bay happily takes him here at the 39th pick.
Definitely interesting. And we move on to the 8th pick of the second round with the Buffalo Bills. Both of us having him taking an offensive lineman, but slightly different offensive lineman. I have him taking Dalton Risner, while you have him taking Greg Little.
Greg Little's a big left tackle from Ole Miss. He will help, again, solidify this offensive line. But, yeah, we both got him going the same direction with offensive linemen here at pick number 40. That just makes sense. You got to help protect your quarterback, and they already addressed their defensive line needs in the first round.
Oh, most definitely. And then we move on to the 9th pick, the Denver Broncos. I have taken a defensive lineman with Draymond Jones out of Ohio State, trying to reinvigorate a defense that honestly has completely fallen off, it seems like, the past 3 or 4 seasons.
They still have Von Miller. You still have guys that can make plays on defense. But I have them going with a center, or Garrett Bradbury here, offensive line / center from NC State. With Matt Paredes leaving this past offseason, Bradbury should be a plug-and-play guy at center for them in day 1, year 1.
Interesting. Well, with the 10th pick of the Cincinnati Bengals, I have them taking an offensive lineman, Greg Little, out of Ole Miss, who you had go a little bit earlier. But Cincinnati really does need to make sure they start protecting the quarterback. That's been a big bone of contention. And you need a guy, too, that can also, who's a terrific blocker, who can get guys off the ball. And that's been a problem for the Cincinnati Bengals for the past few years.
Yeah, I agree. They do need some help on the offensive line. I, however, have them addressing their huge need of linebacker here at pick number 42. Now that Zach Taylor has his QB of the future, they turn their attention to that linebacker position. They take Mack Wilson out of Alabama to help really shore up that linebacking core that really needs that help.
You know, honestly, seeing them wait that long to get a linebacker and get him actually is not a bad move when it comes to them. So I definitely could see that.
You get your
happen.
QB of the future, and you get a guy that can run the middle of the field at linebacker for you. So
still, Craig Campbell, make sure you contact Final Score. He'll be your GM whenever you need him. All right, but looking as we move on further down to the bottom. Wait, where are we at here?
We're pick 11.
Pick 11. There we
Round
go.
2.
I almost lost my space because we're right here with your Detroit Lions. I tell you what, though, Detroit needs help.
They do need some help. We both have them taking corners. I have them taking Rock Ya-Sin, who you just had take a few picks ago. Rock Ya-Sin out of Temple. He's a physical corner. He only played 1 year at Temple, came from Presbyterian College, but he had a strong showing at the Senior Bowl and the Combine. They will love this pick with his physicality and play opposite of Darius Big Play Slay.
Ooh, look at you go. Well, I have them going also with a corner, but a little bit different. Justin Lane, quarterback out of Michigan State, definitely a good corner. Will be able to help shore up that Detroit Lions defense that I think only showed up once all last season, and that's when they picked off Sam Darnold. So, you know.
Hey, we beat the Patriots at home, by the way, who were the Super Bowl champions. So by transitive property, we beat the Patriots at home. I mean, so by transitive property, we're better than the Patriots. Just saying.
Well, you know, the year the Ravens won the Super Bowl, we beat
right?
them at home at 4-12. But guess what it means? You still didn't make playoffs, and you still didn't do anything.
Hey, I mean,
any given
we
Sunday.
still won. We still won. They're building that defense, and that I think a corner pick, no matter who they go with. If Rock Ya-Sin is available, they're definitely going with him. I think there's no question about that.
Absolutely. Now looking at the 12th pick with Green Bay, the 12th pick of the second round, I have them taking Mack Wilson, linebacker out of Alabama, just for all the same reasons you led to earlier. Mack Wilson's going to be a great anchor for the middle of that defense, and that's something that Green Bay really needs now that they've lost all of the star linebackers they used to have, including Clay Matthews, who's now sitting in L.A. with the Rams. So they definitely need to replace him with a guy like Mack Wilson.
Yeah, they do need to address that spot, even though they went out and got Preston Smith, Zadarius Smith, and Amos that you were talking about on defense. I have the Packers going defense as well, but I have them addressing the secondary. A guy you had them take in the first round, I have them taking Nasir Adderley out of Delaware here in the second round because he's still available.
Ooh, look at you go. The brain on Craig. So we move on to the Atlanta Falcons with the 13th pick of the second round. I have them here taking Zach Allen out of Boston College. Zach Allen, great defensive lineman. What's great about Zach Allen, and this is something Atlanta really is needed, is a guy who can not only get to the quarterback, who can also disrupt the run game, but a guy who can disrupt the passing game. And that's a big thing. Zach Allen was able to have 7 pass deflections last season. Now, a lot of people think, oh, well, that's not too big of a thing. Well, you look at the corners and safeties and all the defensive backs that came into this draft, your tops were 9 pass deflections. So for a guy to be getting pass deflections on the level of defensive backs that are going in the first and second round of the NFL draft has to lend to this guy's talent. And Zach Allen, I think, will definitely be able to come in and be an instant impact defensive lineman for the Atlanta Falcons.
I have them going also defensive line, but I have them taking edge rusher Jalen Ferguson from Louisiana Tech here. They need a lot of help addressing that pass rush, and I think this is a great value pick for them here. most of the top edge rushers are now gone. So this is kind of the next wave. You have a couple that are still first to second round grades, and they take one here at pick 45.
Definitely could make sense. Definitely makes sense. Now, as we move on to the Washington Redskins sitting at 14 in the second round, I have them taking a wide receiver because they do need some weapons. And given the amount of receivers that are in here, they were able to wait a little bit on this one in my draft. So I have them taking the lesser-known Terry McLaurin, wide receiver out of Ohio State. A lot of people were really big on guys like Paris Campbell and people like that coming out of Ohio State, but don't sleep on Terry McLaurin. Terry McLaurin, I think, could be a very nice compliment. He has really great speed. Not the biggest guy, but he does have really great speed, and that's something that I feel Washington's really going to need because as they go ahead and bring in whoever the quarterback's going to be, you want to make sure they have some kind of weapon. So that's why they're going to take Terry McLaurin at 14 in the second round.
I have them going offense as well, but taking an offensive lineman, have them taking Eric McCoy, offensive lineman from Texas A&M. In my draft, they've already traded for Josh Rosen. They've addressed a receiver need, having Hollywood Brown, and now you need to get an offensive lineman to help protect that quarterback so he can get the ball downfield to your receivers.
Most definitely. Man, so much great picks going on here. It's great stuff. But as we move on to 15, Carolina Panthers, this is where I feel Jonathan Abram will finally go. I have him kind of sliding down my board a little bit to the Carolina Panthers, but he'll be a wonderful addition to that defensive secondary, and it's something they direly need to be able to protect that deep defensive secondary.
Yeah, they haven't addressed this position in offseason just yet. I have them also taking a safety, but I have them taking Taylor Rapp, safety out of Washington.
Big pickup. So as we move on to the next pick, Miami Dolphins, who do need help everywhere, it seems like. I have them finally taking an offensive lineman, Eric McCoy out of Texas A&M, who's a really big-bodied guy who has really great hands. That's the big thing, is that he's not a grabber. He's a guy who literally will just shoot you in the chest with his hands and is able to drive guys off the ball extremely well, and that'll really help, especially with the Dolphins, who are going to have to probably lean a little bit on the run game until Ryan Fitzpatrick or whoever the quarterback may be, Derek Carr, is able to get settled in with the offensive playbook.
I have them going with the safety. Back-to-back safeties getting picked here. I have them going with Darnell Savage Jr., safety out of Maryland. He's a guy that's, depending on what draft board you're looking at, he's arguably one of the top 2 or top 3 safeties in this draft. Their big need is they want to address the defense this year, so that way they can address quarterback and other issues like that next season. So I have them taking a safety here to help shore up that defense that they definitely need some help with.
Yeah, the Dolphins need help everywhere, and picking up a guy like Savage is definitely a huge boon because Savage does like to play out of his mind. So definitely be a very good pickup for the Miami Dolphins if they were able to make that happen. Now, moving on to the 17th pick of the second round, we finally get the first pick for the Cleveland Browns. And the Cleveland Browns do have certain needs. They've been able to fill a lot of them with their amazing offseason transactions, but still have certain needs at corner and safety. But at this point, I think they take Juan Thornhill out of Virginia, safety, to be able to shore up that defensive secondary that now is a little bit more open because they really don't have anybody back there anymore. So who do you got the Cleveland taking?
I have them going a little bit differently. I have them taking an offensive lineman with their first pick, Yadni Kajust. I'm going to butcher that. Kajust?
Kajust.
Is that, or you don't pronounce the J, correct?
Yadni Kajust. It's silent.
Yadni
Remember, we learned this when doing the
That's
NBA
right. We
Eastern
learned this when you did NBA. That's right. That's right.
Silent J's.
Yadni Kajust, the offensive lineman out of West Virginia. They've addressed, as you mentioned, a lot of different areas in the offseason, but one thing they definitely have not yet addressed is that offensive line. So I have them taking one of the best offensive linemen still available in Yadni Kajust.
Definitely a good pickup and definitely one I could see happening. But moving on to the next pick, the Minnesota Vikings, who had certain needs that I felt they addressed when it came to the offensive line. I feel now they go out and get themselves a tight end and pick up Ivy Smith Jr. out of Alabama to be able to help complement Kyle Rudolph. Kyle Rudolph's been kind of having up and down years. Had a few injuries here and there, but has been pretty solid. But I think if you bring in a guy like Ivy Smith Jr., you kind of ensure your future at tight end. And now you also have 2 talented tight ends, at least for the next couple seasons, to be able to run some interesting packages.
Just to clarify, it's Irv Smith Jr., not Ivy.
Why am I getting all these random things on my stuff?
It's Irv Smith Jr.
Damn you, CBS.
They do need they do definitely need to address that tight end spot with Kyle Rudolph is the only depth that they have at tight end. But I have them going with a guy that is a little bit higher on their draft boards than some may be surprised about, actually. Charles Omenihu.
Am I gonna have to give you
I'm
a
struggling
college
today.
football?
I'm struggling with some names there.
variation?
Charles Omenihu, the defensive lineman from Texas, they still need to shore up a little bit of depth at that defensive lineman spot. So that's why I have them going defensive line here at number 50.
Definitely makes sense because Minnesota could always use a good defensive lineman to be able to shore up a little bit of that defense. But at 19 in the second round, the Tennessee Titans will go out and get themselves a big old wide receiver in Kelvin Harmon, wide receiver out of NC State. This guy is a big guy. He is 6'5". He has huge hands and is able to go up and get a ball. And the best thing I love about wide receivers, if you have a good, long-bodied wide receiver, he's usually going to be able to go up and have a little bit more of a better vertical to be able to get up there and grab balls away from guys. So definitely look out for Kelvin Harmon to be taken by the Titans in this spot.
I have them going tight end here. You have them taking TJ Hawkinson in the first round. I have them waiting to round 2 to address that need. Mm-hmm. But all the things that you mentioned, why they took Hawkinson, that is why I have them taking Irv Smith Jr., tight end out of Alabama here at pick 51 and number 19 in the second round.
Definitely a very interesting pick, and I definitely could see the Titans doing that if they decided to wait on a tight end. So definitely a good pick. But looking at the 20th pick in the second round, the Pittsburgh Steelers finally come in here. I had them going defense with their first pick in the first round. This time I have them going offense, getting Deebo Samuel, wide receiver out of South Carolina, who's a nice speedster that would be a nice complement to try and replace some of the wide receiver power that they lost with Antonio Brown.
They're still pretty confident in having with Juju Smith-Schuster and some of those guys. They can still wait on receivers, in my opinion, and still get solid players that can come in and compete for starting roles later in training camp. I have them addressing their need for corner. I had them getting a gift of Devin Bush at number 20. So I have them taking Sean Bunting, who's a corner out of Central Michigan. He had a very strong combine. He's a big physical corner who loves and excels in man coverage, has great ball skills. I could see them addressing an edge rusher and get Chase Winovich here, but I think they go with the best corner available at this point. It's a guy that's on a lot of draft boards that are pretty high up that the media, again, does not have very high just because he went to Central Michigan.
Yeah, it seems like some of the smaller school guys kind of get a bad rap just because, you go to a small school, must not be great talent. And I always hated that approach to things because look at guys who've come from small schools who've been able to dominate, like the Khalil Macks of the world who came out of Buffalo, of all places.
Antonio Brown came from Central Michigan, was drafted to the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Exactly. Joe Flacco, who's a Super Bowl winning quarterback, went to Delaware. So
your boy Carson Wentz.
There you go, North Dakota State. So at the end of the day, just because they come from a small school does not mean they cannot be a great contributor or even an all-time starter. So just really depends upon what you get. But now we're going to move on, and we are there. Boom, boom. Little mistimed boom.
We need to get a little sound effect board. We're working on that.
Yeah, we are working on that. We tried
so that way you can do your little sound effects.
Oh yes, I'm gonna need sound effects. You know what's gonna be bad? It's probably gonna be just recordings of me saying things like "boom" and whatnot.
Yeah, probably.
Probably. At least it'll
Makes
be better
sense.
timed. You know, be better timed. But anyways, looking at the 21st pick, Philadelphia Eagles. I think are going to address a little bit of edge. They do have an aging defensive line, even though they are a very good defensive line. They are an aging defensive line. And considering that Chris Long eventually is going to retire and has been flirting with that idea for some time, I feel the Philadelphia Eagles will basically address their successor by taking Chase Winovich, edge rusher out of Michigan, to be able to fill in that role.
I have them also addressing the defense here, but I have them addressing the corner position, taking Julian Love out of Notre Dame. They definitely still need some help there. Wasn't necessarily the best position for them, but they get safety and corner in round 1, and they go back to the well and get another corner in round 2 for me. This could be a really, really remodeled defense for them coming in 2019.
Definitely could. And honestly, if they take Julian Love, I'd love every moment of that. The Notre Dame to Philly connection. I'd love it. But looking at the next pick, we got the Houston Texans coming in at 22 and 23, and they're going to go in and try and address a lot of their needs. And it's funny, you had Julian Love going one pick earlier because I have them going here to the Houston Texans to help shore up that secondary that Houston definitely needs a lot of help with. So I definitely feel that's going to happen. Turn right around with their next pick, and they go defense again. But I'll get to that after you explain your 22nd pick.
I have them going safety and addressing that position. Juan Thornhill out of Virginia. They, again, need to help address that. It wasn't terrible last year, but they do need to help shore it up, especially with Tyrann Mathieu was there. They need to address that position. But in back-to-back picks, they get to kind of play with this a little bit. They could move these and trade up or however they want to use it. But if they do keep these 2 picks, I think they go defense first, offense second. Pick 55, I have them taking Elkton Jenkins, offensive lineman out of Mississippi State. I know they already took an offensive lineman in the first round, but they need a lot of help on the offensive line. Like, seriously, need a lot of help on the offensive line. 62 sacks last year. Yeah, you need help on the offensive line.
And that's with a very talented Deshaun Watson running around. That definitely is a very interesting pick. I have them addressing their safety concerns, though, with their second of these 2 picks by picking up Deontay Thompson, the safety out of Alabama, and having coming through the entire Crimson Tide program. We all know how Nick Saban is on his defense and his defensive secondary players, so he definitely will be able to slot in to be a day 1 impact player for the Houston Texans.
Pick number 56 or number 24 of the second round, if you're paying attention. New England Patriots, I have them taking Chase Winovich, edge rusher out of Michigan. I've seen some mock drafts that show the Patriots taking Chase Winovich at the end of round 1.
Oh, yes.
So this is interesting that I have him falling down. They still get him here at the 24th pick of the second round. They do need to help shore up that defensive line with Trey Flowers leaving and some of the other guys that we mentioned earlier also leaving. So I think they get to fill that spot right here at the 24th pick of the second round.
Well, looking at the 24th pick of the second round, I do have New England addressing defense, but not the defensive line yet, because keep in mind New England does have another pick in this round that is only so many picks away, 8 picks or so. So I do have them addressing those issues then, but right now I have them addressing the cornerback position by getting Sean Bunting out of Central Michigan for all the same kind of reasons you mentioned earlier, because the guy is a great talented player and he's going to be able to be an impactful player, especially considering the kind of hits that the Patriots took last year, especially in the back of the defensive secondary with the safety position with Patrick Chung breaking his arm. So being able to start reloading the defensive secondary does make sense with this player available at 24. So as we look down even more, though, we get back to the Eagles, who end up with another pick, and I feel that they're going to take the second best running back, as do you, and Damian Harris, running back out of Alabama.
They could address other needs here.
Oh, they could.
But they did get Jordan Howard, but he's still only a 1-year rental at this point. They haven't given extensions or haven't talked contract extensions to my knowledge, so it makes sense for them to draft a potential replacement. Damian Harris doesn't have a lot of mileage on his legs, being from Alabama, who they use a lot of different running backs in their backfield. So having a guy that can come in and potentially be the number 1 back if Jordan Howard leaves, or if he ends up staying longer, he could be a good complement to Jordan Howard.
Absolutely, and that's the big thing I see too, is that with the running back situation in Philadelphia, a lot of changes, and they like guys that are able to be a dual threat guy, and that's something Damian Harris can do, because he can run it, he can catch it, he literally can do it all. But when you look at guys like Darren Sproles, who's going to be retiring after this season, like you said earlier, Jordan Howard's a 1-year rental right now, unless they re-sign him later on in the year. That really only leaves you Clement and Smallwood in the backfield. So you definitely want to try and make sure that you have some type of weapon going forward. And Damian Harris, especially out of that Alabama backfield, which has produced so many greats over the years, only makes sense here at the 25th pick in the second round. But moving on to the 26th pick of the second round, with the Dallas Cowboys sitting there, and I think they will move defense this time around and go and get Darnell Savage Jr., safety out of Maryland.
Safety is a good pick here for them. It's one direction they could go. I have them addressing the defensive line here. Draymond Jones, defensive lineman out of Ohio State. Mm-hmm. They definitely still need to address the interior of their defensive line. So I have them addressing it here at pick 58.
Definitely not a bad pick. Definitely not a bad pick. But we move on to 27 with the Indianapolis Colts needing to, I feel, readdress their defense a little bit more. Go and get, and I know I'm going to butcher this one, Amani Oruwariye, cornerback out of Penn State. Actually, I think that was probably a good attempt.
I think that was probably a good attempt.
But he's definitely a nice long player, plays fast, and I think he's definitely going to be able to bring a whole nother level of play to the Indianapolis Colts, who are still going to be trying to shore up their secondary at that point. But looking on the other side at yours, you definitely have an interesting pick for the Indianapolis Colts.
I have them addressing the wide receiver need. Kelvin Harmon, wide receiver out of NC State. You have him going a bit earlier. I have him going here to Indianapolis because they still need to address that position. Mm-hmm. But Kelvin Harmon, he's not the fastest or the quickest guy, but he knows how to play. He knows how to play to his strengths. He can catch a ball. He doesn't get a lot of separation, but he can catch in traffic, which I think is going to be a big need for Indy if they want to find a good complement to T.Y. Hilton and the other receiver out of Michigan that plays for the Colts, Devin Funchess.
There it
I don't know
is.
why it escaped me for a minute, but I have them taking Kelvin Harmon, who's a younger guy, and he can catch in traffic. That'll be a good complement to T.Y. Hilton.
Absolutely. That'd be a great pick, especially a guy at his size being able to run down the sideline for Andrew Luck. That would just be amazing to see. But also keeping with wide receivers with the 28th pick in the second round, the LA Chargers, who I had take an offensive lineman earlier, are going to turn around and take a wide receiver, Paris Campbell, out of Ohio State. And I think this is going to really help with the LA Chargers and being able to round out the wide receiving core and give them a little bit more of an insurance policy, given the fact that they have had injury issues over the years with Keenan Allen and other players on the receiving side of the ball. So I think this one, to me, kind of feels like a no-brainer. Go give Phillip Rivers another little toy in the garage so he can go try and go make a push for a Super Bowl.
Again, there's a lot of different directions that the Chargers could go here. I have them going corner, addressing that with Justin Lane out of Michigan State. He's an ascending bump and run corner with some rare size and length, according to a lot of scouts. His good movement skills to overcome that lack of speed that he has. Good route recognition. He does allow for some separation from breaks, but I think he'd be a good addition to shore up that LA Chargers pass defense that they did pretty well, and they got a lot of good guys on their roster, but it never hurts to have some more depth in the secondary.
No, it never does hurt to have depth in the secondary, just because at the end of the day, defense wins championships. So definitely go get the guy you need to be able to make that happen. Now, looking at the next pick, I do have the Kansas City Chiefs, the 29th pick of the second round, going and getting David Montgomery, running back out of Iowa State.
Ooh, this is early.
Oh, yeah,
a little
bit early. The reason I say this, though, is that when it comes to the running back position, ever since we had the entire situation break down, with Hunt, that they haven't really had a solidified starter yet. And I feel maybe that, and a lot of people might think I'm overreaching here, but I feel that David Montgomery, if you actually watch his game film, he is not a bad runner in any way, shape, or form. Now, he's not the fastest. He only ran a 4.63, and he's not necessarily the strongest. He only had 15 reps on the bench press. But the guy, he runs long, and that's what I love about him. His broad jump, 121 inches, which was not at the top of the board, but was near the top of the board. So he's a very long runner, and he was a dual threat quarterback in high school, which is also something to kind of keep in mind. So he tries to play as smart as he can. So I definitely think he could be a really great addition to this offense. It might be able to bring the kind of speed and elusiveness that they need to try and at least replicate what Hunt was able to bring to that offense.
That seems like a solid pick. I could see them getting him maybe in round 3, but he's going to be a guy that could, as you said, make all of those exciting plays. He was a very exciting player to watch at Iowa State in college, so I could see them going that route. I have them going with another skill position with Paris Campbell, wide receiver out of Ohio State. This guy is not the biggest, and he's been seen as some boards all the way up into round 1 going to a team like the Baltimore Ravens, but he's barely 6 foot. They have him listed 6 foot. He's barely 6 foot.
Barely.
But I have them taking him here because of the fact that he's an explosive player. Pair him with the explosive offense of the Chiefs. Watch out. This could be a huge pick for them.
Definitely could be. That's very interesting to see that one. But as we keep moving on through,
Couple picks left. Only three.
Only got 3 picks left. We're getting down to the wire. And at number 30, the New Orleans Saints, who honestly do not have a lot of holes. I feel like obviously they did lose Mark Ingram, but I feel like Alvin Kamara is really just going to step in and just take completely over at this point. I feel that they are going to go a little bit different direction, and they're going to go take Hakeem Butler, wide receiver out of Iowa State, who's a nice big body receiver who's great at going up and getting 50-50 balls.
He doesn't last this long.
No? You don't think he'll last this long?
No. He's gone in the first 10 picks of the second round.
Guess what? In my draft, he makes it all the way to the New Orleans Saints to add a nice little pony to Drew Brees' garage. And if Hakeem Butler ends up in New Orleans, watch out NFL defenses, because that's going to be a scary matchup.
I like how you explain that, because for the same reasoning, I also have the Saints taking a receiver, but I have them taking J.J. Arcega-Whiteside.
That hell of a name.
Out of Stanford. So he's 6'3". He's also a big-bodied receiver, not as big as Hakeem Butler, but he's a big, strong target, and he is an ex-basketball player. His ball skills in the red zone are going to be huge for Drew Brees, and I think he's not as a very explosive player, but he is going to be a huge asset for Brees in that offense, especially in the red zone.
Definitely got receivers going out here. Definitely going to get some big body guys, because New Orleans, really all they ever need to do is kind of reload the receiver position, it seems like, because they always end up making the right moves everywhere else. So definitely an interesting take on that. With the next pick, though, and our next to last of the second round, we have the Kansas City Chiefs already back in with 2 picks within 3, and I feel like they're going to go out and they're going to go help their defense just a little bit more. And they're going to go out and get themselves, and I hope I do not butcher this, O'Shane Zamanis, which is how the phonetical... Oh, I got lucky. I got the phonetical spelling here.
Ooh.
Oh, yes. Look at me go. O'Shane Zamanis, he's a great force, played great for Old Dominion. He's a small school guy, so a lot of people don't always look at these small school guys. But if you look at his senior year, 42 stops, 11.5 tackles for loss, 7.5 sacks, 3 forced fumbles. The guy is a freak, and he just keeps bringing up the stats and played great. And I feel like the first time I really recognized this guy is when we saw last season, or was it last season? No, I think it might have been the season before. I can't even remember at this point. When he played, it was last season, Old Dominion versus Virginia Tech, and we had this huge upset. He was instrumental in that game and being able to really kill that Virginia Tech offense, because he was such a disruptive force. And the guy is not slow. He runs a 4.78. So the guy is not slow, and he even ran in the 20-yard shuttle 4.57. So the guy is quick. He has good lateral movement and is able to really push himself up the middle. The only really concern is he's not the heaviest guy in the world. So some people worry about certain larger offensive tackles manhandling him a little, or at least being able to keep him from being able to get through the line. But I feel if he put on a little bit more weight, maybe add a little bit more muscle mass, he might be enough to really be a true steal for the Kansas City Chiefs.
I also have them going defense, but I have them addressing the safety position. Deontay Thompson from Alabama with pick 63, almost at the end of the second round here. He's a very talented high safety prospect, good range, good ball skills. He will, experience some bumps, but as he grows, I think playing in Kansas City, they don't really necessarily like defense too much. So I think that he will be a good spot here for them to pick up to help shore up that secondary with the leaving of Eric Berry.
Most definitely. That definitely could be a big pickup for them. But looking at the very last pick that we have, this one was a really tough one for me. I felt New England could have went a lot of different ways, especially with needing a tight end still. But I felt like that they do need a little bit more defensive line help. And I feel with that, they're going to go get Gerald Willis, the third defensive lineman out of Miami. A really large man who's able to muddle up rushing lanes, and is usually pretty good at throwing a hand up here and there to really disrupt the passing game as well and getting in the face of the quarterback. So definitely going to fill a huge need for the New England Patriots. But like I said, New England definitely could go tight end, like I think you have over here.
I do have them going tight end. I have them taking Jace Sternberger, the tight end from Texas A&M. He's a big 6'4", 251-pound tight end. He's not the fastest guy, but he's a guy that is going to help replace the void that was left by Gronkowski. But I think he's going to be okay working in that offense. He's athletic. He's got above average ball skills, catch radius, things like that. Mm-hmm. But I think working under Bill Belichick, he's going to be a guy that they're just going to use as another story of how the Patriots just get guys and they coach them up and they end up becoming great pros.
Man, well, you can literally take anybody from anywhere. I bet you I could take you, tell Bill Belichick you caught a ball once when you were like 5 years old, and I bet you he'll pick you up and turn you into an all-star slot receiver in no time.
I'd be great with that. That'd be awesome.
I'm sure you would. But just remember, when you get to that point, you can hire a guy as your agent. So consider this guy. And
I heard you know a guy, Chris Carnage.
I do know a guy, Chris Carnage. He's a great sports agent.
I bet he is.
Among other things, he's literally a jack of all trades.
Yeah, a couple. I was on the fence about having the guy that you just had, the New England pick. What was his name?
Oh, Jared Willis.
Willis. I've seen a lot of character issues with him, and it's just that's why I don't have him. I don't have him in the second round. Other guys to watch out for that I actually have falling out of the second round. Zach Allen, who you already have taken in your second round. He could be a guy that is in the second round there. Terry McLaurin, I don't have him in the first 2 rounds. Other guys to watch out for that could sneak into the second round. Trayvon Mullen, the corner from Clemson. I've seen him going to the Chargers in drafts. LJ Collier from TCU. I see him going to the Eagles as an edge rusher in some drafts. Who's some other guys? Emmanuel Hall and Andy Isabella, receivers out of Missouri and UMass respectively. And Lonnie Johnson, this name, pay attention to this guy. Lonnie Johnson, who's a corner out of Kentucky. I have seen him come all the way up, sometimes borderline almost a first round in some mock drafts and some boards. So this could be a guy I think you can see out of day 2 that we didn't already cover in our boards.
Yes, definitely. And you know what? There's a lot of great players all the way through, but sadly, we were at the end of our 2 rounds. Man, that was sad.
2 rounds was kind of tough, though. We initially wanted to go maybe 3, but that's a lot.
Yeah, and
that's a lot of work.
Considering we're almost pushing 3 hours at this point, we would have definitely be going a lot longer still.
We appreciate you guys hanging around and watching us and sticking with us the whole time. This is definitely by far, I think, the longest episode we recorded. So... Yeah, this is now the longest one. We had one that was just over 2.5.
I think it was like 2:40. I think was the other one. So we still beat that out.
Yeah, this one beats that.
We still win in that category, but still really great stuff. Awesome draft preview. Thank you guys so much for joining us for our draft preview. Definitely make sure that you check us out on all of our social media outlets because I'm sure we'll have more stuff we're going to post about the draft as it comes later this week. Yep. But sadly, though, we will have no give or go this week. We do apologize in advance. Preparing a draft preview is not easy. Yeah, it's not easy. We knew this was going to take up a lot of time, so no give or go this week. We're actually also going to be off next week. We're going to take a week off. I'm going to be out of state. The draft is next weekend. Give some time to pay full attention to that, but we will be back the week after with a brand new episode. Yeah, so definitely make sure that you keep your eyes peeled for that one, and we'll definitely come back at you with that one. But there is one last thing we need to do, and that's our week ahead. The final thoughts. Our final thoughts. I'm looking forward to the rest of this first round with the NHL. We got a few games coming up here. Dallas actually just beats Nashville 5-3, so they now take. They take that series? That's a 3. Now. I think they do take that series. 3-2. Yep, they're taking that 3-2. The 76ers Brooklyn Nets series got really heated in this game today while we were airing. Yeah, a brawl even broke out to the point where 5-10 players were involved. So definitely very Jimmy Butler and Jared Dudley both got ejected. Philadelphia wins that series. They take now a 3-1 lead, going back to Philadelphia in game 5. Excuse me. So that will end up being a deciding factor. Or that'll still be in Brooklyn if it's game 5's in Philly. I don't mind me. Say, where are you at? We're 3 hours into a show. I'm a little, that's true, mentally exhausted here. We are pretty exhausted, and even with some of us dealing with health stuff. So we're making it. We're making it though. Just for you guys. We want to do it for you because we love you. But yeah, so we'll be back in 2 weeks with a brand new episode, and we're gonna cover all of the things in the playoffs and
and probably cover some new news that's going to be coming, and all the fallout from the NFL draft. And how many picks did we actually get right?
Yes, and trust us, we'll bring those numbers.
We'll bring that.
We will math that day. All right. But definitely make sure that you follow us on all of our social media outlets, on Facebook at /PCN Final Score and on Twitter at PCN Final Score. And definitely make sure that you pop on over to podcastcity.net /Final Score. Check out all the great offerings that we have there as well. And you can also catch us now on Spotify, Google Play Music, and iTunes. All you have to do is go on there, go to search, there's a little search bar up there, search keyword Final Score. Give us a like, give us a follow, give us a subscription, and download all of our latest episodes today. And of course, you can also check out our Podbean at pcnfinalscore.podbean.com and download all of our latest episodes there. But sadly, episode 11, our 2019 draft preview for the NFL has come to an end. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Craig, for being here yet again and being a great co-host.
Thank you.
I don't know how we figure our head through the door sometimes, but we thank you for joining us. And
might not be able to next week if I get a lot of picks right.
Oh, well, hopefully, the next week that you'll have in between will help you subside with the swelling of the cranial cavity and be able to bring you back down to a normal human. So thank you for joining us, and to make sure that you check out this episode and all of our other great content across all of our platforms. But until next time, I'm Chris. This is Craig, and this has been Podcast City Network's first sportscast, Final Score. Have a great night.
Podcast City Network.